Thank you. Pardon me. Thank you, Vythrin. I know I do. There is a method to my madness. And you will forgive me if my voice sounds a little raspy. I'm still getting over that cold of mine that I had when I did the show last week. But you're early. I haven't even announced this to the world yet. Well, I did on Twitter, I guess. I'm announcing it to the world right now. Alright, we'll get the rest of everybody in here. But yeah, the entire idea is that I'm gonna... iPhone announcements? Really? You must be subscribed to my Twitter feed, I think. But yeah, it's time to count down Mists of Pandaria, right? I'm in the beta, as you can see. I'm not actually in the game. Really? See, that's fascinating to me. But you know what? That kind of concerns me as well, because I'm considering dumping Twitch. Yeah, I'm considering dumping Twitch. I haven't decided whether I want to or not, but I'm considering dumping Twitch and going back to Livestream. It's just that Livestream released an ads-free version of the stream, which is very compelling to me, because I don't get much money from the ads on Twitch TV. So I'd rather give my audience a version without ads than the pennies they throw at me with the ads. You prefer Twitch because Livestream confuses you? You know, Twitch is definitely a gaming audience. It's definitely geared towards gamers, so who knows? Maybe I'll stick with them. But ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, I am in the Mists of Pandaria beta, and they have not closed it yet. I know, I'm shocked. But I'm standing here in the middle of the beta, and it hasn't been closed. Not sure why. I mean, it's supposed to go live in, what, an hour and a half? So, any moment now. Yeah, I realize I'm not wearing I realize that my hairstyle has changed. And that's because I couldn't find my derby. I know I had it just the other day. I'll find it in time for the show, trust me. But, yeah, I don't know where it is. So, you guys get this one. Alright. So while we wait for everything to go collapse, and in fact, I don't even know. Hold on, let's see. Battle.net. See if we can find a status update. And then worldofwarcraft.com. Do they have a countdown? Nope, but they do have a date. Alright, according to the clock, it is 9:34 by my time. So, if they're going by Pacific Standard Time, or Pacific Daylight Time, depending on what time zone thing it's on, I don't even know, then they've got 2.5 hours, right? Okay, so they've got 2.5 hours before the entire server goes live, and I'm just curious to see when this one will go down. You are currently looking at me inside the beta server on WoW 1 Mists of Pandaria beta, and my full intention is to stay online until these beta servers go kaput. I want to have it on film, and I want to share it with the world. The moment the Mists of Pandaria beta servers went kaput, that is the goal with this entire stream. I don't know if it's going to actually work that way, though, because that's 2.5 hours from now, and I get tired. I'm old. Come on. I'm 31 years old. I think that is old enough for me to be considered like a codger who needs a cup of warm milk and a little knit cap and bunny slippers to go to bed at night. That's my perfect weekend evening. I take it back. My perfect weekend evening is scotch and cigars. Today we are drinking a little bit of Teacher's blended scotch whiskey. I am too poor for the single malts. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Oxhorn. Cannot afford single malt Scotch whiskey, but I do have enough for blended, and that's just fine. That's right. Get your class on with some blended Scotch whiskey. Kenny Chan says a middle-age dilemma. Look, I hope not. I hope I am not at middle age. I'm 31. And that means that I'm going to die at the age of 62? I don't think so. That is not my ideal time, ladies and gentlemen. I will not consider myself to be middle-aged until I'm 50. Because then that means I'm halfway there. I expect to live well into the hundreds. Maybe 110. Maybe 120. You know what? The key to long life is, besides scotch and cigars, grow a beard and wear boxers. Long life. Do not question my logic or my reasoning skills. These things, they're inherent. Like as soon as I don my hat, I need not be questioned. Today we are smoking this fine fellow. His name is Gold. That's probably part of his name. The rest of his name is Brundet David. Special edition. So we're going to ignite this fellow, set him on fire, and cause him to be destroyed in the glorious way he was intended to be, in my mouth. There are a lot of things I noticed that you can say, and then you think back about having said them, and you go, wow, that really could have been misinterpreted. That said, in other contexts, could really put me in the hot soup. But I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm just going to light up this stogie and go on with my life. Alright. The lady says, did they change the panda dance to Gangnam Style yet? Panda Gangnam Style! You'll pardon my crazy old man laugh. It's only because I'm still a little sick. But that would be pretty great, wouldn't it? If they just did the galloping sort of... Hey, sexy lady. Oh, from Gangnam Style. Feel no. To baby God, no. Baby. I don't know. Yeah. 14 of you have decided to come on tonight. Surprised, actually. I'm also surprised that Blizzard decided to release Mists of Pandaria on a school night. Well, that's one of the reasons why my poor brother is not online right now, because he has to go to college tomorrow morning. But they decided to do it on a Tuesday. Whatever. Well, we're getting all sorts of great people in here. Randaran, great to see you. Foxy Pandaran, pleasure. The Lady, Kanichian, and of course Vithrin. You guys are all here today. Oh look, it's H-Star. Pleasure to have you guys here. So I'm glad you guys saw it on Facebook. Here we are, as I was telling everybody before you guys arrived. Cheers. Chin 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 chin. It's Tuesday night. I had a long day at work, but a good day at work. And this is the Mists of Pandaria beta. Foxy Pandarin wants me in druid form. Alright, I'll humor you. What? Why? Okay, what druid form do you want? I've got like 3 or 4 forms. I'm a druid. Just asking. But the gist is that this is the beta of the Mists of Pandaria beta. The game is going to be going live in 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, if they're doing it on Pacific Standard Time. So I want to see these servers go down. I want to see them crash and burn. And I want to have it on film. That is why we're doing this. That's the sole reason. So great that you guys are here with me. And I'm getting requests from people asking me to go into my different various druid forms. So here we go. And they want me to dance? Okay, I'm going to dance for you. Alright, nothing new there. Oh wait, that's the Gangnam Style? Oh! So that South Korean video was based after the Druid Bear dance. Is that what you're saying? Alright, you know what? I'll go with that. Why not? That sounds good. Why not, right? Why not? Oh, travel form. Alright, let's try. Holy cow, I'm a deer of some sort. What happened? I thought I was a cheetah. Or is this not new and I'm expressing my noobishness by not knowing that you're no longer a cheetah? Whoa, when did I become a stag? That's pretty sick. Alright. Okay, he's dancing. He's doing the fox... Wait, what is that? How do I know this dance? Oh, that's like a hoedown, isn't it? It's some sort of foot over foot, right foot, left foot. Dance with your partner. Step right, step left. Okay, that's pretty cool. Oh, it's new. It's a new dance, huh? Sweet. Okay, the real Vithra over here is saying that he wants to ride me. No, not gonna happen. That's right. Going back into ox form because I'm not putting on glyphs so that you can mount me. I'm sorry. It's just a little too creepy. I'm gonna stay in my Tauren form, in my awesome little lunar festival outfit, and have a good time. That's just the way it's gonna be. Oh, you can cry all you want, but no ifs, ands, or buts. That's Oxhorn's rule. Oxhorn's rule is gold. In. Alright. Smoke rings. Okay, Milla Ninja, that's what she said, really? Nope. Enough innuendo. I understand. These things can sometimes... Never mind. Euphemisms. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. You are either going to be really bored or incredibly entertained by what I'm about to do. I hope it's the latter, but we shall see. Quite possibly it's the former. And if it is that case, then of course I will be learning something tonight. So here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Since the year 2000, I have been working on a novel. That's right, I have been working on a novel since the year 2000. And the name of that novel is The Tale of Cloran Hastings. I have been trying to get it published for a considerable amount of time. And then, of course, Oxhorn happened. That's right. I started making these videos, and they took off, and I was making, like, poems, and turning them into songs, and doing all sorts of stuff. And I kind of neglected the book. For nearly 10 years, it sat in my desk, untouched. I didn't even bother to pick it up. And yet, within the pages of this tome, this novel I wrote when I was the age of 20-something, contain many of the characters that you now know and love. And, secret, full disclosure, and yet partial disclosure, none of you may tell anyone about this. This is all secret stuff. Hush hush, pardon me, under the hat and all of that stuff. Considering there are only 17 of you watching right now, I feel it's fairly safe. But I'm in the process of publishing it. Yes, that's right, I am finally publishing my novel. I am publishing an ebook version of it, and I am publishing a hardback version of the novel. And I'm really hoping you guys are going to enjoy it. So in preparation for this novel that I am publishing, I, of course, am proofreading it. I am forcing myself to go through it page by lovely page, and making sure that everything within the pages are correct. I did this 10 years ago when I finished my final draft, but obviously that was a very long time ago. And, hold on a moment. Whoa, why am I here? Wrong chapter. Anyway, so obviously that was a very long time ago. I have changed a lot since then. I have become a better writer since then, and it is, of course, time for me to go through the thing page by page and edit it again. So I've been doing this industriously, or industriously, I don't even know, whatever the things that you're supposed to say. Indubitably, I've been doing this indubitably for the past few days, and I'm halfway through the novel, and I am going to go through some of it right now, because today's a work day for me. I realize that this game is about to go live, and I wish I could play with everybody, but instead, I've logged into the game. You can go to the Mists of Pandaria server and go to WoW 1, and you'll be able to find me there. and you'll be able to just kind of see me because I'm not interacting with anybody. In fact, everybody in there right now is saying, alright, hold on, people are talking to me. Hey fellows, can't chat, streaming live at scotchandsmokerings.com. Wow, somebody is so amazed that I'm here that he's spouting profanities. That's not cool. No profanities in the Oxhorn chat. We're all gentlemen here. I see me, Omega Law. Right, yes, you can see yourself. That's because I'm live streaming, yes. Oh, what do you know? That is the fascinating thing about streaming live on the internet. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, where was I? I was talking about some sort of text, and then my cigar went out, and blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. Hold on, Mark. Alright, so here's the deal. I'm going to be online talking with all of you fine fellows. And in the meantime, I'm going to be doing some work. I'm going to be reading this book aloud as I proofread it. That, of course, means that you will be privy to my innermost thoughts. You'll be able to see and hear a little bit about this novel as I go through and proofread it. So enjoy. I'm about halfway through the book. If you don't want any spoilers, I guess you'll have to mute it, because I got to do some work tonight. But you're more than welcome to stick around and wait with me as we wait for Mists of Pandaria Beta to crash and the game to go live to the world. And you can listen to me talk to myself. Now, and the reason that I'm talking to myself, and this is a trick, if you're ever trying to write a book, don't proofread it by just reading it in your head. It never works out. You will catch 100% more errors if you read it aloud to yourself. Your mind goes through a different process as you're reading when you're speaking it aloud than if you're just doing it in your head. Because in your head, you see the text before and after what you're currently looking on, and you see it in your periphery and you understand it, and you kind of skim ahead without realizing that you're doing it. But if you speak it out, you have to speak and see every single piece of text, and so it's much easier and better to proofread it that way. Oh dear, we have some sad news, ladies and gentlemen. Hawkstar on Twitch TV says some sad news. My baby is in the hospital with a viral infection. That's really sad. As you know, we just had our own baby, so I know how you feel. Many blessings to you, Hawkstar. We hope that your baby is going to be completely fine. I don't know if you're religious or not, but as a Christian, I'm going to be praying for you, and I hope you guys feel a lot better. Alright, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Chapter 11 of the Tale of Cloran Hastings, Pale-Faced Hospitality. Cloran and crew stood aboard the dinghy in the shallows of the island. Arrayed on the island was a host of women, downcast and sorrowful due to their loss, but striking in the morning sunlight. The lady with the red hair came forward to bid the sailors farewell. I wish our parting could be a more joyous one. Perhaps you could stay longer? If only the sea could give us time, said Cloran, standing tall at the front of the dinghy. But there is an important matter that we must attend to, and time is not on our side. I fear we have delayed too long already. The lady nodded. Okay, Slong is really just, yes, I understand. And I'm reading your name. Wow, what do you know? Slong, it's great to see you. I hope this makes your life. Day. I hope this makes your day. I'm so glad that you're here, and please enjoy the reading of my novel online. Hold on a second. Wow, what do you know? Slong, it's great to see you. I hope this makes your life. Yes, I'm echoing. I know. I'm so glad that you're here, and please enjoy the reading of my novel online. There we go. Echo is gone. Love you too, my friend. Love you too. Alright, where was I? The lady nodded. I understand. Go then and fulfill your duties. Thank you for your help with the creatures from the sea. This is not the first time they have raided this island, and had you not been here today would have turned out just as bad as it had before. Abruptly, the lady drew close to Cloran and spoke softly so only he could hear. As special as your relationship is with the sea, I know her much more intimately, she said, looking Cloran in the eyes. Cloran frowned and raised an eyebrow, but the lady kept on talking, quickly but quietly. She chooses her objects of hatred on a whim, and once she has chosen, she never relents. She has chosen you, Cloran, and so be on your guard at all times. You never know what menace lies crouched and waiting behind each wave. For my part, I will watch and wait. You will not come to harm as long as I am able to intervene. And the real Vithrin says trollolololololololol in my chat. Yeah. That's okay, I'm glad we're all men of class here, and we're not taking advantage of this unique opportunity to troll the internet. No, no, sirs. No, no. Foxy Pandarin says, can I at least hear the basics of the story? Alright. So the basics of the story to date are, for those of you who do not want spoilers, plug your ears. Alright. Basics of the story are this. Cloran Hastings is the best sailor in the world. He just came home from a 9-month voyage at sea. He's ready for a long rest. And in fact, he wants to marry his fiancée of many years. But the king of the land of which he is a part will not allow that because he has a special mission for him. He wants Cloran to go and fetch something of great importance to him. And so he sends Cloran out, even though he's exhausted having spent 9 months at sea. He sends Cloran and his crew out to fetch this very important package for him. But the sea now hates him because the sea realizes that Cloran wants to marry his fiancée and wants nothing more to do with the sea. So the sea is constantly trying to thwart their trip to get revenge upon him. So he meets disaster after disaster at sea. And we're about halfway through the novel right now. Thank you, lady. Your help is always appreciated. And now I must leave to sail north to Mayotes. Farewell. With that, the crew rowed towards the ship. They boarded her and raised the anchor. Cloran took the wheel, and with the sailors at the oars, eased away from the island. The island got smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. A large wave appeared behind them and soon overtook them. It lifted Wave Grazer and then lowered her, and the wave continued to go out before them until it collapsed back into the sea. They lifted the oars, pulled tight the halyards, and Cloran spun the wheel north. Wave Grazer, catching a strong wind, cut through every wave before her like a knife. People are messaging me in the game. I should probably put something like AFK up there, huh? Right. AFK. I hope that doesn't offend anyone. I'm going AFK right after this guy messages me. Okay. How about D&D? D&D. Better. Alright. But when the ship had long gone and the sea showed no ripple, a head peeked out of the waters. The face was adorned with long braided red hair, and the owner fully emerged and stood atop the waves. She closed her eyes and hailed, and then faced north with her green, piercing gaze. All that afternoon, the crew discussed their adventures with Mallory and exchanged tales of what had happened to them while he was gone. The only sailors who were quiet were Cloran, who was concerned with the weather and focused on his sailing, and Richards, who kept to himself, high in the riggings near the top of the rear mast, nursing his shoulder. At last the sun extinguished itself in the sea, and the moon came out along with the stars, which were not veiled by the clouds that night. Cloran gave the call to turn in for dinner, and the crew went below. But Richards caught Mallory by the shirt before climbing down and took him aside. Someone's asking me if I'm the legit Oxhorn. Does anyone in chat want to give Raffle Stomp an answer? Mallory, I want to apologize, Richard said softly. Apologize? For what? For calling you a coward before. You see, I didn't understand why you were careful before jumping into danger. He looked at his feet and spoke with a strained voice. But now I know, if only slightly, what it is you're protecting your wife from, ever having to live through. The love I knew was formed and taken from me this very same day, and if it stings this badly, I cannot imagine the sting of broken love formed over a lifetime. I apologize, Mallory. Yes, Slong, you were right in front of them on the internet. You, sir, are a trooper. Mallory couldn't meet Richard's eyes, and was choked with emotion, but he smiled and embraced his friend. All is forgotten, my friend. Waves far behind us. I think I had friend in there too often. How about embraced him instead of embraced his friend? But he smiled and embraced him. Why is it doing that? Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. Alright. Anyway, continuing on. Cloran didn't speak much in the days that followed. He stood all day and every day at the wheel, gazing northward at the horizon, sailing straight without break. He would sail all night without rest, much to Len's displeasure. The trip itself went smoothly. There were no rough waves, and the sky had not been clouded for days, and so the sailors found themselves hanging leisurely in the riggings and discussing idly what they would do when they got home. Dude says, I want to make a shout out to all of my guildies. When I get home, said Mallory, smiling with his eyes closed, I'll buy a new house for Jessie, right on the outskirts of Stren. It will be on lots of land. Wow, now that I think about that, that's strange. It will be on lots of land? Like on a lot of land or a lots of land? Is that too weird for me to include? It will be on lots of land? Acres. It will be on acres. Well, no, that's why I changed that originally, because it takes place in a world that doesn't have the acres. It'll be on acres. That's okay. We can keep an acre even if it is a unit of measure that doesn't exist in this world. We're not picky. Alright. It will be on acres of land all level with no hills and no rocks. We will have animals there with sheep and horses, and we will have lots of children, and each one will have a pony. I suppose that works well for you, said Turner, but animals stink, and I certainly wouldn't want to live amongst stinky animals. I'll tell you what I would do. I would buy a tall building right in the heart of Stren and turn it into a museum. Why, we would have lots of Menegan history in Stren, but no proper place to keep it. I would build large tables and lay on them artifacts from the Nurth Wars, arranged nicely and in order. I would keep the place spotless at all times and hire a full-time staff to clean the dust and grime from the city. I'll stay at the top of the building and write stories of everything I have seen and take old texts from years ago and assemble them, order them, and, if need be, translate them. Yes, that is how I would spend my time. How boring, said Richards, dangling in the riggings. What a dull way to spend your days, reading and writing, ordering and cleaning. Bah! You need some excitement. I would become a diver and collect things from the ocean floor. I'd buy a place right on the water by the docks, and every day I'd dive to the bottom and search for colorful rocks and oddly shaped coral. Maybe I'd even find some riches that have dropped there, or old treasure that people have long forgotten. And you can put them on display in my museum. Sure, if you like, but I'll also go down there and find rare fish that none have ever seen, and put them on display in big tanks. And maybe I'll find some new fishes that are good for eating and come up with a recipe that no one has ever heard of before. You can leave that to me, said Greaves, leaning against the railing. I'll open up a restaurant right on the water, and I'll be the lead cook. I'll serve the best foods in all of Stren. Richards can give me whatever rare fish he finds, and I can turn them into splendid dishes. I'll become renowned throughout all of Menega as the finest cook around, and tourism will boom in Stren just from all the people coming to eat at my place. All those ideas are fine and good, said Darrell, but they lack manly vigor. I would become a fighter in the ring, and I would fight the mightiest warriors in the land. They would all gather at the arena in Stren, and people would come to watch me fight them one by one, and send them back home to their families in shame. No one would be able to beat me. I would be known as the definition of strength, endurance, and valor. That's silly, said Jenkins from the top of the mainmast. Such a life lacks intellectual challenge. I think the greatest life would be that of an explorer, which is why I've always enjoyed my time here on Wavegrazer. But when we return, I'd like to spend my money on a tall building miles away from Stren. It would have a flat roof where I could sit and study the moon and the stars. I would write down everything I saw and name everything that was unnamed. Maybe I would find new constellations, or perhaps, if I gazed long enough, I would discover things that no man has ever seen. And then I would draw great maps of the sky, and sailors could use my detailed maps for perfect and precise navigation. People would know me as the greatest watcher of the stars that ever existed, and my findings would go down in history. What about you, Len? He asked, turning to the first mate. What will you do? Me? Well, he said, thinking, I can't imagine myself doing anything other than what I'm doing now. I love sailing. I love battling the ocean, and I love adventuring to faraway lands. I love the freedom that the sea gives me, the ability to move wherever I wish, and to be subject to nothing but the fancies of the sea. Len sat down on the deck and leaned against the cabin door. When I get home, I will just count the days until I can go back out to sea. Don't you all like being sailors? I don't mind, said Darrell. It keeps me busy, is exciting, and I never go hungry. I think most of us are glad we are sailors, said Jenkins, but I don't think any of us want to be doing this for the rest of our lives. It's a good job and a satisfying way to live, but there are many other things I would like to accomplish before my short years are through. Jenkins frowned and stood erect at the top of the main mast. I can't even use... My goodness, ladies and gentlemen, my goodness. Are you guys ready to see the service crash? Me too. But we got 2 hours. 2 hours to just chill and hang out and swap stories about days gone by. Plans wasted on video games. Oh no, we would never say that. No, we love it. Alright, moving on. I see something, said Jenkins. Oh wait, he put his hand over his eyes and gazed northward. Okay, I'm not going to be a party leader. If you guys want to invite me, that's fine, but I'm not going to be a party leader. I'm not going to be... How do I leave a party? How do I leave a party? Quit? Oh, I'm not in a party. I am now, and it looks... Wait. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. Alright, hold on. Sling is the party leader, everybody. Sling. Okay, Slung or whatever your name is, invite everybody else. Perfect. Alright, what was I? Slong? Okay. You just have that accent over the O, which... I mean, I was a Swedish major in college. Well, a part Swedish major. Sling, sling, slong. Where were we? Pardon me. I see something, said Jenkins. What is it, us, Cloran? And don't tell me it's a ship or island or rock with ridiculous half-man, half-fish creatures. Oh, it's none of those, Captain, said Jenkins, but it looks like a castle. A castle? On the water? Yep, it looks like a castle or some sort of tall stone structure. I can't rightly make it out. You can't make out something on the water before us, but you can see what's on the moon, chided Richards, and the sailors laughed. There wasn't a mist between between me and the moon that night, but there's a mist here. Look, it's coming at us. As soon as he spoke, a mist developed before them and engulfed the whole ship. The sails drooped and Wave Grazer cut slowly through the dead waves. The air was stifling. Every footstep the sailors made was magnified, but the sound of the sea was soft. I can't see anything beyond the nose of the ship, said Jenkins. The sailors came down to the deck and walked to the bow. All they could see was gray, and all they could hear was the gloomy lapping of the water against the hull. This isn't a natural mist, said Greaves lowly. Not natural at all. Can we turn back, asked Turner. I don't know where back is, said Cloran. But don't worry, all mists dissipate. I am more concerned with where we will drift to in this mist. I have no sun or stars to guide me. Should there be no stars? No, that's neither nor, not no or. Right? Okay. Just then the sailors felt a strong wind on their faces, coming from in front of them. The sails puffed inward, then drooped down, and the ship bobbed, dead in the water. Suddenly a dark, wide opening appeared before the bow, and it came right at them. Look out! Called Jenkins, and Cloran twisted his wheel to the side, but with no momentum, the ship did nothing. The dark space opened before them and grew large. The crew could now clearly see a stone wall, built of many large rectangular blocks, erected on a small bit of earth. In the side of the wall was carved a giant opening, large enough to swallow many ships. Before the sailors could do anything, they were enveloped. The light behind them quickly vanished, and all went dark. I am a mod, and I am here, so just yell or something, and I'll do something about it. The sailors scrambled about on the deck, bumping into each other, but then a light was lit. Len lit up a lantern. Alliteration. And lit. Oh, there's another one. Oh, Len held up a lantern and lit 2 others that hung from the cabin wall. I liked it better when Len lit up a lantern. Cloran took off his hat and threw it on the deck. Things just can't go smoothly, can they? Why can't a journey ever be easy? Because that would take all the adventure out of it, said Richards with a snicker, but Cloran glared at him. I'm not in the mood, Richards. We don't have time for another delay. He rubbed his eyes and then looked around. All right, so what have we stumbled upon this time? On either side, they saw the gray brick walls of the structure, but above them there was no roof, just darkness. When they spoke, their voices echoed deep into the depths of the castle. Everywhere around them, they could hear drips and splashes. The air was cold and dank, and the moisture in it choked their lungs. There was no room in the channel for the ship to turn around, but even if they could, the entrance behind them was out of sight. Take up the oars, lads. Let's paddle our way through. Push up against the walls if we drift too close. I'll do my best to keep us centered. Let's see if we can find an exit. Let's hope this labyrinth has an exit, said Mallory, and his voice returned to him 3 times in that hard, hollow channel. But other voices echoed through the labyrinth, and they weren't of the sailors' making. At first they sounded low and far away, like a humming under one's breath. But as they rounded a turn in the channel, the voices became louder. The sailors realized that they were hearing many voices, low growls and yelps, and now and again a bellow would peal through the air. Cloran stiffened and listened in the dark, dank air. Get your spears, boys, he said, and quickly. What are they? Asked Turner, and the crew set down their oars, scrambling below to get their weapons. They came back with a spear each and their curved swords strapped to their belts. If I am correct, those are the calls of... Cloran started, but as they passed by a dark ledge on either side of the ship, the sounds intensified, and there were more growls than yelps, and bellow after bellow pealed through the air. Sea lions, he said. The crew looked at him confused. Sea lions? Asked Darrell, but those don't sound like sea lions. Cloran moved towards the railing of the ship and then tossed him a spear. Not that kind of sea lion, he said. In the torchlight, the sailors could see pale eyes looking at them from the dark crevices surrounding them. One pair grew larger, and with a growl its owner came into view. A sea lion leaped over the side and onto the deck. It had a shimmering silvery coat and clawed flippers. It had the head of a lion with a pointed snout and long teeth. Flowing blue mane graced its head and stretched down its back to its pointed tail. It roared, and 2 more lions leapt onto the ship. Oh, said Darrell. The sea lions lumbered towards the sailor and attacked with guttural growls. The men faced them with their spears and forced them back. Terrell gutted one and cast it over the side with the point of his spear, and when he did, the howling and baying from the stone shelf grew louder and angrier. A dozen more came into sight. Turner and Mallory ran to the side and fended them off, but as the ship drifted through that narrow channel, more eyes appeared in the darkness to either side. Before the sailors knew it, angry, roaring sea lions had overrun the deck. Len and Cloran stood back to back and gutted any lion that came near them, but soon they were up to their elbows in lions and had no room to use their spears. The sailors drew their swords with a sharp ringing, and the curved blades chopped through the hides of the lions as if they were melons. Greaves and Darrell laughed, and together they made piles of the corpses around them. But in doing so, they trapped themselves. As more animals came onto the deck, the 2 men had to climb into the riggings just to have swinging room. Silver blood flooded the deck and made fighting slippery work. Jenkins tied a rope to his left arm and flung the other end around a mast so he could keep his footing. Slipping about, he used his momentum to his advantage and thrust deep within the flesh of his assailants, sending sea lions flying overboard. Richards was the only sailor who still used his spear. He hung in the riggings and skewered any creature that came by. The sailors made piles of the attacking creatures and sustained their fair share of scratches and bites. But no matter how hard they fought, the lions kept coming. "Sail us out of here," called Jenkins. The current in the channel pushed the ship closer to the stone walls until it scraped against them, coming to a halt. "I doubt they will stop coming. We need to move from this place." Greaves pushed the carcasses aside and made a path to the wheel. Cloran and Len worked their way towards it, through tough opposition, kicking overboard bodies and live lions alike. Cloran finally reached the wheel and gripped it in his hands. Greaves picked up an oar and pushed away from the wall using all of his might. The ship shuddered, scraped, and finally lurched away from the wall, and Cloran drove the ship back into the center of the channel. The sailors took up the oars, and some used them to keep the ship away from the walls, while others paddled hard in the narrow channel. Greaves swung his oar around his head, smacking sea lions and flinging them overboard. Before them, the channel split into 4 paths. The water began to move faster, forcing Wavegrazer along. Cloran quickly looked down each path before him and chose the furthest to the right. Twisting the wheel sharply, he nosed Wavegrazer into the dark new path. The sailors killed the remaining lions on deck, and the bellowing, growling, snorting, and baying soon faded behind them. The deck was slippery with silver blood of the creatures, and the sailors found it hard to keep their footing. "How did you know which one to take?" asked Jenkins, kicking corpses overboard. Cloran shrugged. "This way was the only one without a dark shelf on either side. I figured we would be rid of the sea lions this way. But I don't know where it leads, and I have no idea if this is the right path." "Oh, look at my poor deck," said Turner, moaning. "And after all the work I've spent keeping it spotless." "Killing sea lions is messy business," says Darrell, wiping a sword on one of the corpses nearby and sheathing it. "Let's get rid of these bodies," said Turner, and he kicked a few overboard. "No, don't get rid of them all. I want to try something," said Greaves. "I want to see if their flesh is worth eating." "We can bother with cleaning and eating later," said Jenkins, who had climbed to the top of the main mast again. "Look! At the end of the channel there was a dim light. Daylight. Drawing near, they saw that the channel opened up into a large square chamber. As they entered the chamber, they saw that the daylight came from an opening to the left that led outside, but before them was a wooden dock attached to a stone stair. It wound upwards to a stone shelf, and on that shelf was a stone door. On either side of the door was a torch, and the door had a silver knocker in the shape of a man's head. The sailors rowed the ship alongside the dock until she came to rest. "Looks like you chose the right channel," said Jenkins. "The exit is over there, boys," said Cloran, "and I don't want to further explore this castle. Help me push away from this dock, for we are heading out." The sailors lifted the oars and used them to push away from the wooden dock. But just as they did so, the stone door opened and a frantic man came out and ran down the stairs. He was the palest man the sailors had ever seen. His skin was white, devoid of any pigment, and his hair was even whiter. He wore a high-collared cloak, dark blue coat. He wore a high-collared, dark blue coat with silver buttons, and it flapped as he ran down the stairs. "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" he said frantically, reaching the dock. "What are you? How did you come? Why are you here? What is this?" Cloran sighed. "My name is Cloran Hastings," he said, turning towards the excited little man, "and this is my crew. We came through that opening there behind us, and we found it well guarded." The pale little man's eyes went wide as he covered his mouth. "No, not the Cloran Hastings, flayer of the Giddendrak and slayer of the horned whale." Cloran cringed. "That's what people say." The pale man paced along the deck quickly and then raised his eyes. "Amazing! What good fortune! You must come with me. I must show you to the king." "Oh no, we haven't the time," said Cloran quickly. "Send him my greetings, but really we must—" "Do not deny me," said the man loudly, tensing his body. "You came through our back door uninvited and you killed our pretty pets. The least you can do is meet the king." Cloran groaned and glanced at Len. "I suppose we owe them at least a greeting," said Len. "Let's just be quick about it." "All right," said Cloran, turning to the pale man. "We will meet your king, but we haven't got much time, and we need to make this brief." "That's just fine," exclaimed the man. "That's all I require. Come now, follow Philip." "Yes, that's me. I am Philip the doorkeeper, but you can call me Phil. Follow Phil." Greaves leapt onto the dock and tied up Wavegrazer. The gangway was lowered, and the sailors disembarked. "Stay close, boys. Let's not wander and get lost. I don't want this to take more than a moment." And with that, I'm going to take a pause to take a sip of my scotch. I hope you all are enjoying a sneak peek into my latest project. And before my cigar goes out entirely, I'd better take a few puffs. Oathblade says the story is good. Well, you just made my day. I'm really pleased. Honestly, this is the first time anyone other than myself has heard anything on these pages, with the exception of a few family members who did some proofreading for me. Pardon me. Drake the Lord says, "Oxhorn, I was wondering if you're going to make any more of your awesome World of Warcraft machinimas of the panda being hunted." Quite possibly. The Panda Exterminator is one of my favorite characters now. And I doubt that I'll let him only do one video, so who knows, maybe we'll have a whole lot more. Millen Ninja says, "It reminds me of the Odyssey, except not as Greek. And better. Well, I love being compared to the Odyssey. I don't know if I could possibly get better than the Odyssey. Homer. But I'll do my very best. Alright, smoke break over. Let's power through this chapter, ladies and gentlemen. Power through it. After all, we're trying to proofread. The sailors made silver footprints as they followed Phil up the short stone steps. When he reached the door, Phil gave the silver man head knocker 2 quick knocks and 3 long ones. The sailors heard shuffling on the other side, and then it opened. The man that greeted them was also pale, with hair just as white as Phil's. The 2 men whispered together, and then the porter smiled and greeted the sailors. "Greetings, sailors! I am Marvin the porter, but you can call me Marv. Come, follow me. I will show you to the king." Marv led them down a gray stone hallway. It was lined with torches that had blackened the walls. The walls were tall, and the ceiling was far above them. Silver doors appeared in the walls as they walked, some being tarnished, but others were polished. And below these were scrape marks on the floor from their constant use. There were no decorations or furnishings anywhere to be seen, but it didn't feel like the sort of place that wanted furnishings. "Cloran," whispered Richards. Cloran slowed his pace to walk alongside Richards. "What?" "They referred to the ruler of this castle as a king," said Richards. "Aye, they did. But isn't Bosun the only king? We are still in Menegan waters, right?" "Yes, we are." "So shouldn't we do something about it?" "No, I don't think so. It's not as though this fellow were claiming the throne of Menegan. At least not to my knowledge. Perhaps he is just the king of this castle, and I suppose there's no harm in that. Besides, I don't think Bosun would mind some unknown floating castle inhabited by pale men floating around ruling to their own affairs." "If I were king," said Richards, "I wouldn't want someone else calling himself king too." "When you're already the ruler over much, there's no need to bother yourself with ruling over just a bit more," said Cloran. "It's just the principle of the thing. It bothers me." "Well, don't pick any fights about it, Richards. I don't need you making a scene and delaying us further." Richards nodded sheepishly. As the men walked, Darrow kept staring at Marv and finally couldn't contain his wonder. "What type of creatures are you?" he asked his guide as Marv led them through the castle towards the throne room. Marv stopped and faced Darrow. After a moment he smiled. "We are men just like you, isn't it obvious?" He continued leading the sailors. "But if you are men, why are you so pale?" Marv laughed. Marv laughed. Maybe I should put that on another line. Yep, I need to put that on another line. Alright, edit break. We're here to edit. See, this is the problem. I edit something way at the beginning of the chapter, and then there are no other things to edit. And then I gotta scroll all the way down until I find that one place. Okay, Phil. Marv laughed. There we go. "We live inside of a floating castle and we never come out. This is what happens when the sun doesn't reach your skin for many years. But don't you mind that. We are just as human as you." A narrow hall appeared in the wall. Do I do this on purpose? A narrow hall appeared in the wall to the right, but Marv led them past it. At length they entered a square stone room with a well-polished door on each side. In each wall. A well-polished door in each wall. Blue. Couches also lined the room between the doors, and they looked soft, made of cream, brown, white, and even light blue leather. In front of them was an ornate door made of wood and beaten gold, worked into twisting shapes. "Here we are. This leads to the throne room," said Marv. "King Mundin only allows one supplicant in his presence at a time. Cloran will follow me, and the rest of you please take a seat. Servers will be in shortly to offer refreshments." "Don't bother sitting, boys. I won't be gone long." "Won't be gone long. Ha! Not gone long. Hee hee hee," said Marv with a chuckle, but he avoided Cloran's sharp glance and opened the door for him. Cloran walked into the throne room, and the double door shut behind him. A long silver and blue carpet led to the throne. Tall, slender pillars of white stone lined the long carpet, and as Cloran walked past, he could see silver workings within them glint in the daylight. The light came from 4 long and thin slits in the top of the arched ceiling, which led outside where he could hear the sea slosh. Cloran could see that the sun was just on its way down, but he gritted his teeth and hurried along to get it over with as soon as possible. The hall was not very long. At the end was a white throne, and hanging on the wall above it was a flag. It had an azure field and was trimmed with silver. 3 silver chevrons pointed down in the middle of the field, and affixed in the center was a rather queer rendition of a pale head. Cloran frowned and looked away. It wasn't a particularly attractive flag. On either side of the throne stood a bored-looking guard, wielding a silver halberd and wearing a long, high-collared blue coat with silver buttons. On the throne crouched a thin, wiry-looking fellow with frumpy clothing, regal enough compared to the guards, but unkempt and faded. He was asleep and slouched to the right, and on his head was a white, spiny crown made of, apparently, bone. A narrow hall appeared in the wall, as if, As Cloran approached, the 2 guards looked up from their thoughts and immediately stood at attention. Cloran stopped at the foot of the throne and nodded at the guards. "Should I wake him?" he asked, but the guards glanced at each other awkwardly. "Yes. No," said the guard on the left. "That is, he should be woken, but you are not the one that should do it." "No, he should," said the guard on the right, turning to the guard on the left. "We don't normally wake him when he sleeps, so he may be mad at us when he wakes. Let this newcomer wake the king." "You're not thinking," replied the guard on the left. If the newcomer wakes him, Munden could very well get angry at us for not properly introducing him before being addressed. You know he doesn't like to be spoken to by people he doesn't know." "What do you know?" replied the guard on the right. "Nothing. That's what you know. And I know you know nothing because I've known you not know it. You are the guard on the left, after all. And why are you the guard on the left? Because you are never right. I, however, am always right, which is why I'm the guard on the right. So, being right, I know what is right to do, and I say we should wake him." "Is this really why you were the guard on the right?" "Yes, it is. Munden told me when he hired me." "Well, now I feel awful. I thought he liked me best." "Why would you think that?" "I don't know. I suppose I was just assumed. And now I'm just a worthless guard being on the left." The guard on the left started to cry, and the guard on the right walked over to comfort him. There, I'm sorry you weren't picked to be the guard on the right. You're a fine and proper guard, and as far as I'm concerned, you stand more erect than any guard I have ever known." The guard on the left stopped his sniveling and looked up. "Is that true?" "Yes, it is. And to prove it, I will let you stand on the right today, because you are my friend, and the most erect standing guard I have ever known." "I think that is the kindest thing I have ever heard," said the guard on the left, and with that they switched places. "But only for today," said the guard on the right, who was now on the left. Right. Yeah. Cloran stood and waited, but the guards looked straight ahead and didn't seem to know that he was even there. Straight. I can't believe I did it again. This is the second time I've done this book. I misspelled straight. I used straight as in the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Nope, wrong one. There we go, okay. Just look straight. Cloran stood and waited, but the guards looked straight. Ha! Good catch. Good catch. Grandbrusque says, "Can I ask a question? What is a classy alcoholic beverage to disinfect a gum inflammation?" Listerine? You could try there, and brushing also helps. Foxy Pandarin says, "I am sad." I'm sorry you're sad. Okay, Foxy Pandarin says, "I am sad. You're the only one streaming at the moment." Well, sorry to bore you. Gosh. Now I'm sad. Sad sip. I know, Foxy, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. It's alright. Well, where was I? Let's see. Cloran stood and waited, but the guards looked straight ahead and didn't seem to know that he was even there. So, shall I wake him? He finally asked again. Yes, said the guard on the left, who was now on the right, but no, said his counterpart, and at the same time. They glanced at each other. No. Yes. They glanced at each other again. Yes. Yes. Cloran hesitated for a moment and then addressed the king. Sir, said Cloran loudly, but the king did not wake. He did, however, begin to snore. King Munden, said Cloran louder. I don't think he can hear you, said the guard on the left. Yes, I'm aware of that, Cloran said annoyed, so maybe you two can help me. The three of them shouted, yelled, and called for Munden over and over, but the small king did not stir. Finally, the two guards gave their halberds to Cloran and shook the king so vigorously that King Munden finally yawned and opened his eyes. He sat up in his chair, stretched, and looked around with a frown. Were you two shaking me? No, sir, the guards replied. Oh. Well, then, that was either a really bad dream or a really good one. Where are your weapons? Cloran outstretched his arms, and the guards quickly retrieved their halberds. King Munden sighed and slouched in his throne. My, I feel so safe. So, why are you here? Are you going to give me tribute? No, said Cloran slowly. Are you going to sing for me? Not at all. I'm here because, well, then you are no good. Go away. Very well, said Cloran through his gritted teeth. I am here because Phil sent me to greet you, but I shall return to my ship and leave then, if that is your wish. Cloran turned to leave, but Munden stood up from his throne quickly. Wait, wait, he said earnestly. I didn't know Phil sent you to me. You came through the back entrance then? Cloran turned back around. I'm not sure. We happened upon your castle by accident and came through a channel swarming with sea lions. I apologize for killing your, pets, as it were. Munden laughed and jumped back into his throne. Not at all. They breed fast, so it's no worry. They're just here to guard our doors and to eat whenever we get hungry. And we are often hungry. But come, tell me your name and of your travels. My name is Cloran Hastings, and I have come from Maniga. I am headed north to Mayotes, and actually I'm in a bit of a hurry. If you don't mind, I really must be getting back to my crew, back to my crew now, so that we can continue with our journey. Now, the guards didn't switch places. The guard on the left was now the guard on the right. He was still the guard on the left, but he was standing on the right. You see? Right? Right. I really must be getting back to my crew now, so that we can continue with our journey. Cloran Hastings! Exclaimed Munden. Here I have Cloran Hastings. You must stay and eat with us tonight. I have much to discuss with you. Oh no, I really can't do that. I must be going now. Oh no? Going, eh? Humor me and answer a few of my questions. It's the least you can do after killing my pets, as it were. Cloran couldn't say no to that, so he resigned himself to answer the questions Munden gave him. As soon as Cloran had entered the throne room, Marv turned and left the entry room, saying he needed to maintain his position as the porter. The sailor stood around for a while, waiting for Cloran to return, but as he took so long, they sat in the soft leather couches instead. I wonder what kind of leather this is, said Greaves, sitting down on one of the blue couches. I don't think I've ever seen anything with blue skin before. They probably dyed it, said Jenkins. It doesn't look dyed. We should get some of these for inside the ship, said Richard, sinking into his couch with a smile. Who cares about couches? I just want to get to Mayotes and back, said Mallory. We've had far too many stops along the way. Ah, now you're starting to sound like Cloran, said Richards with a chuckle. Always talking about time and weather. And here I forgot a period. Doesn't that mean right switched with the left? Of course it means right switched with the left. But that doesn't keep him from continuing to be the guard on the right. Let's see. Oh, now you're starting to sound like Cloran. And there's the missing period. I'm so glad I'm doing this. Alright. Where was I? Poor Cloran. He just wants to get this trip over with, said Len. I don't think we've ever sailed this late in the year before. Usually we're unloading and cleaning the ship about this time, getting ready for spring. Maybe you are, said Darrell, but I'm usually at the Unicorn this time of year. I'm going to get Wave Razor ready for when Cloran gets out, said Len. He stood and went out the door that they had come through. As soon as Len had gone, the doors to the left and right of the throne room opened, and out came 2 other pale men. Phil asked me to serve you this wine, said one of the men, and they went around the room, handing each sailor a silver goblet filled with a clear liquid. Hey now, this isn't a bad deal at all, said Richards. Free wine and soft seats. Enjoy, said the servers with a smile, and they left the room. Len walked back down the hall to the very end and opened the door to the small harbor where Wavegrazer was moored. Phil was there, and he stopped Len. I'd like to go back to the ship and get her ready to go, said Len, but Phil laughed. Your ship isn't going anywhere yet, he said with a grin. Len frowned. Why not? Phil's smile faded and he cleared his throat. Oh, well, only because it is a custom we have that our guests remain inside the castle until they are all ready to leave. And since your captain is still conversing with the king, it would be great if you could all just wait in the room until he is done. Besides, I sent some wine down for you all. Try some. It's really good. The best we have in the castle. Len nodded. All right, if it is your custom, I won't complain. Len walked back inside and Phil closed the door. He shrugged and walked towards the interior room, but on his right he passed the narrow hallway that they had walked by earlier, and curiosity got the better of him. He looked around, saw no one, and went down the small hallway. It was dark, and torches did not line it, as they did the main hallway. It went a short ways before turning a sharp corner. Upon turning the corner, he stopped abruptly. Marv stood there, blocking the way. You cannot come this way, said Marv sternly. This is not open to guests. I'm sorry, I didn't know, said Len, but he paused. Might I ask what is down here? Marv was quiet for a moment. Gold, he burst out. Yes, we have gold back here. It is our castle treasury, so we don't like strangers coming this way. I'm sure you understand. Sure, no worries. I'll go back with the others. Len retraced his steps back to the main hallway and walked towards the chamber where the sailor sat. Suddenly the harbor door creaked behind him and he spun around. Phil had entered from the small harbor and his face was excited. Without looking around, he darted down the narrow hallway where Marv was, and Len could hear them talking. Len silently walked towards them, hugging the wall, and when he got close enough to hear them, he hid behind a torch, lying flush against the wall. And I was sitting there and saw it swim by, big and silver, as big as a man. Wow, that big, eh? I wonder if it tastes as good as one. How did you catch it? I threw a brick at its head and stunned it, then dove in and grabbed it. He sure was a slippery fellow. I don't think I've ever caught a fish that struggled so much, but I smashed it against the wall until it stopped moving. Quick, come see. You won't believe me otherwise. Marv and Phil flitted by and cast shadows down the hallway, past where Len stood, flush against the wall. They opened the harbor door and went outside, leaving Len alone and confused. A fish that tastes as good as what? He grabbed a torch from off the wall and quickly turned down the narrow hallway. The hall twisted, left, then right, then left again, until at length he came to a narrow wooden door set in the stone wall a few inches off the ground. He opened it and climbed inside, but as he shut the door, he dropped his torch, and it went out. Blast, he said, and he bent down to pick it up. Feeling the ground for it, he came across many strange things. Some were round, and some were long and flat. They were all hard, of course. No, they were all hard and coarse. Yeah. Ugh, what an awful smell, he said, wrinkling his nose. And these don't feel like gold bars. Where is it? He finally found his torch. He pulled out of his pocket a piece of flint and took a small knife. He struck the flint with the knife and sparks flew. At last a spark caught hold of the torch and began to burn. Len blew on it until the flame burst from the torch. Satisfied, Len stood to his feet and looked around. What he saw in that room horrified him. Bones littered the floors, some still red with blood. They were scattered all over the place, some stacked in piles, others just strewn about. The bones had teeth marks in them, and it was clear that they had been chewed upon. Len gasped. These are human bones! They've been eaten! The gravity of the situation dawned on him, and his mind went towards the crew. He threw open the door, casting his torch aside. He ran down the narrow hallway, turned one corner and then another, but as he turned the last corner, he stopped dead in his tracks. Marv stood in his way, but this time with his sword drawn. Despite my best efforts, it appears you have discovered our little secret, and sooner than we would have wished. Cannibals, Len cried in anger, but Marv laughed. No, we are not cannibals. You must eat some of your own kind to fit into that category, but we are not human, not by any means. We are the man-wraiths, my friend, man-wraiths. We may wear the visage of men, but we are creatures of another era, forced off the land by you wretched people. And now that your captain is dead and your crew is drugged by our special wine, we will be able to feast on their fat flesh without care." Marv giggled, thinking himself terribly witty, but a sharp hiss sliced through the air and silenced him. Len stood with his curved blade drawn. "I have been to the edge of the world and the bottom of the sea. I've hitched a ride on the four winds, seen more than most could ever dream, and I will be damned if I let some measly, pale-faced man-wraiths make an end of my captain and crew." Marv was not used to his prey fighting back. After all, he usually fed on those that had drunken his special wine. He no longer smiled, and with his sword pointing towards the floor, he stepped back. "Phil!" he called over his shoulder, but the door to the harbor was shut, and Phil was now within earshot. Len lunged at Marv, and the man-wraith turned and fled down the hallway, trying for Phil. Len chased after him, but the man-wraith was quicker, and Len lost sight of him. Blood, however, was not foremost on his mind, and he turned and ran as fast as he could towards the entry room, shouting, "Don't drink the wine!" "I think we should have a toast before we drink," said Darrow. He raised his silver goblet. "To what should we toast?" "How about to victory in battle, since we did just kill all those sea lions," said Greaves. "No, too conventional," said Mallory. "How about we toast to a successful journey?" "Way too boring," said Richards. "We need an exciting toast, something unique. Let's toast to fantastic adventures, above and below the sea, to fine foods, lovely ladies, mighty battles, and strange sights." "I, for one, hope we don't come across any more adventures," said Jenkins, "and I bet Cloran would feel the same. Let's toast to no more adventures." "Aye, and to no more messes," said Turner. We have quite a bit to clean up when we get back to the ship. I hope that silver blood doesn't stain." Forget the toast. Now my arm is getting tired from holding this goblet," said Darrow. He put the goblet to his lips and drank the whole thing in one gulp. So then a few years later we stumbled upon a hole in the water. Not a place filled with land, mind you, but an actual hole that went through the ocean and came out the bottom. Cloran sighed. "That's enough for now. I really must get going." Munden glanced at the guard on the right, who was really the guard on the left, and nodded at him. The guard looked at him quizzically, but then nodded in remembrance and walked towards the throne room door. "Wonderful story," said King Munden, clapping. "I say, your adventures are so exciting. Perhaps you could tell me one more story?" "I'm afraid I must decline," said Cloran irritably. "I don't have the time." Munden's eyes were not on Cloran, however, but on his guard. The guard reached the throne room door, opened it, and peered through. He saw Darrow quickly chug the contents of his goblet. Closing the door, the guard turned to his king and nodded. Munden grinned and leaned back in his seat. "You have led an amazing life, Cloran, and I thank you for answering my questions. But alas, I am afraid your run ends here, and I do hope you will hold nothing against me." Cloran frowned. "My run is not ending anywhere," he said, "and what is it I would hold against you?" Munden leaned forward, wearing a broad grin. "We are a simple people, leading simple lives. Our only joy in this wave-riding existence is when we can feast upon the most succulent delicacy of all." Munden's grin faded and his eyes were unblinking. His jaw was agape, and the smallest trail of drool escaped the corner of his mouth. Cloran still wore his confused frown, but then the thought dawned on him, and his eyes went wide. "Oh, we are a responsible race, and we use every bit of our prey. Of them we make weapons, buttons, toys, dice, and couches." Munden stood from his throne and slowly walked towards Cloran. "We eat only the finest and the fittest, of course. Phil makes sure to choose prey with the most meat on their bones." Cloran drew his sword. "If your intentions are what I think they are," he said angrily, "my crew will burst through those doors and cut you down." "They are no threat to me," said Munden with a cracked voice, and he broke out in a string of jittery laughter. "By now the wine they drank has turned them into senseless sacks of meat. And soon the feast will begin." Cloran sliced through Munden's string of laughter with his sword. He stabbed Munden in the chest and thrust him back onto his throne, sticking him to it. "Guard!" said the man-wraith king. The man-wraith king screamed, grabbing at the hilt sticking out of his chest, but the guards on either side of him shrieked and ran around aimlessly. White, sticky blood oozed out of Munden's chest, and he spit and swore. "Help! I'm losing sap!" he cried, but Cloran did not stop to hear any more. He turned and ran towards the door, shouting, "Don't drink the wine!" "You dolt, you're not supposed to drink until everyone is toasted," said Greaves, but Darrell just shrugged. "You were taking too long," he frowned. "Blech, that stuff didn't taste very good anyway." Just then, Len burst through the rear door. "Did you drink any of the wine?" he asked anxiously. The sailor stood quickly confused. "I did," said Darrell, "but the others hadn't toasted yet." Cloran burst through the throne room door, much to Len's relief. "Draw your swords, boys," he called. "We've got to cut our way out of here." "What happened?" the crew said, but they heard echoes throughout the castle of loud, hurried footsteps and the clanging of weapons. The doors on either side of them suddenly opened and out poured dozens of chisel-wielding man-wraiths. Without another word, the sailors dropped their goblets, drew their swords, and, leaping atop the leather couches, fought off the man-wraiths. They came at the sailors boldly at first, but within seconds the first few assailants had been stricken down. Their white, sappy blood oozed out of their bodies, and a fragrance of newly hacked wood filled the room. In dismay at the loss of their comrades, the man-wraiths backed up to the end of the room, but larger man-wraiths with clubs and maces entered, and were not as timid. One lunged at Jenkins, who deftly evaded the blow and struck back, slicing the man-wraith along the neck, but the blade offered the big man-wraith but a scratch, and with a laugh the man-wraith slung low at Jenkins' feet, tripping him to the floor. The man-wraith, however, did not get to finish him off. The rest of the sailors lunged upon him lustily, and hacked at him so fiercely that bits of his fibrous body flew in all directions. The enraged man-wraiths lurched towards the sailors, and Len opened the rear door as the fighting became more pressured. "Out!" he called, and the sailors backed out between swings. With all the men out the door, they ran down the hallway towards the harbor, with the man-wraiths in hot pursuit. But Darrell could not keep up with the sailors, and at last his strength failed him and he fell. He cried out, and Graves skidded to a halt, turned around, and ran to get his friend. By now the largest of the man-wraiths was upon Darrell as he lay there and hefted up a giant chisel, but Greaves threw his weight into the man-wraith, and they tumbled to the floor. They wrestled there until Greaves overturned him, and then, taking the man-wraith's own chisel in hand, hacked at the man-wraith's trunk, giving him large, gaping wounds that oozed sap. With the man-wraith lying there moaning, Greaves hefted Darrell over one shoulder, and with the chisel in his free hand, fended off the other man-wraiths as they reached him. The smaller ones fell quickly, and soon Greaves had carved up a pile of moaning bodies. With no room to go around him in that narrow hall, the remaining man-wraiths backed off warily, cursing and hacking at the air. Greaves turned and fled after his shipmates. Turner opened the door to the harbor and lunged at Phil, who was sitting there carving up the fish he had caught. With a cry, Phil dove into the water, and the sailors poured out of the castle and ran the length of the dock towards the ship. All climbed aboard, and Cloran raced to the wheel. The sailors used their oars to push away from the dock, and Richards fumbled with the rope that held them. "Where are Greaves and Darrell?" called Jenkins from atop the mainmast, and in horror they realized that the two were not there with them. But just then Greaves leapt out of the doorway with Darrell over his shoulder, and ran down the length of the dock towards the ship. The man-wraiths came after them enraged, and some stopped to throw small darts made of bone at Greaves and the ship. Most missed or stuck in the ship's hull, but one caught Greaves in the thigh, and he cried out. Turner and Mallory grabbed the rope that was still attached to the dock and pulled the ship close again, but the gangway had fallen and dropped into the water. Greaves looked back and saw the man-wraiths approach, and with the last bit of his strength, he leapt towards the ship, casting Darrell over the side in the process. As Greaves came down, he caught the rope that dangled there. "Go! Go!" called Len, and he and Richards pushed away with their oars. Greaves hacked at the rope below him with his chisel until it snapped, and Wavegrazor was free. Cloran used the momentum from Richard and Len's push to ease the ship towards the exit. As the sailors plunged their oars into the water and rowed fiercely, he nosed the ship away from the dock. The man-wraiths had reached the end of the dock just in time for Wavegrazor to drift out of reach. Turner and Mallory hauled Greaves aboard as the man-wraiths hurled bone darts and spears at the ship, only to have them stick in the hull or sail harmlessly overhead. As the sailors emerged from the darkness of the castle, they heard the wails and groans of the angry, hungry man-wraiths, and then a call went out. "King Mundan has died! King Mundan has been drained of sap!" But the ship sailed on, the castle grew smaller, and the calls of the man-wraiths faded. Chapter 14 over. What time is it? 10:44? My goodness, how much time do we have left before the server goes down? I want to see a crash.
You are listening to Radio Dismute.
Aww! Who was it that said earlier that it would be a party foul to have the cigar die? Party foul. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I will watch the chat for a moment while I recuperate from my strenuous activities. Oh, I'm getting some accolades in the chat. I'm sorry, but I'm going to appear incredibly pleased with myself as I read your comments, because I've never read this aloud before, so I'm pretty stoked. Clap, clap, bravo, bravo, cheers, boo, said Miller Ninja. You can't say boo after saying clap, clap, my friend. Oh, for the cigar going out? Oh, okay, right. Well, let's light this bad boy back up, alright? I've got a few matches left, I do believe. Has anything happened in this game since I've been out? Don't bite my finger. Blast. Really? Slong left? He was done looking at himself online? Golly. I wonder why. Send me a friend request. Now let's see. I don't see any friend requests. It might be because I'm in the beta. I'll check it when I get online. What type of cigar is that? Asks T-Lad. I showed it off at the beginning of this stream. Let's see if I've got the wrapper around here somewhere. I put it somewhere. You know what? Speaking at a loud volume while smoking a cigar while recovering from a sinus cold is not cool. You know, I've got I don't know where it's at, I'm sorry. I'll post this online and then you can go back and see the beginning. Well, I'm glad you're here, T-Lad. It's a pleasure to have you here. So the story behind the whole reading right now is that I'm trying to get a book published that I've been working on since the year 2000, so almost 13 years. And I'm finally going to publish it, hopefully in time for Christmas. We'll see. But I'm through the final process of proofreading the final version right now, which is great. I've even caught a few mistakes while I've been reading it live to you fine folks. And the reason I'm reading it live is because you catch more mistakes when you read it aloud to yourself than if you just look at the page. Miller Ninja, that's a good question, but I'm not going to answer you because it wouldn't be fair. After all, I'm biased. I won't tell you how I'm biased or which way I'm biased, but I'm biased, so. Baby Zane says, oh my goodness, I had a sinus cold too. It hit our family hard over the weekend. Friday, I was starting to feel it, and then Saturday and Sunday were just miserable. Kenna-chan, interesting question. I'm not going to say it aloud because I don't want people to see this broadcast in the future and learn my evil plans, but the answer to your question is yes, and I've already started on it. Miller Ninja, you're asking really, but I don't know to what. Am I really biased? Of course I'm really biased. I won't tell you in which way I'm biased, but I'm biased. That's not a great statement. Everybody's biased about something. You could be biased about politics or religion, or you could be biased about not being biased about politics or religion. You could be biased about the kinds of fantasy books you like to read, or the kind of foods you like to eat. You could be biased about what time is the best time to go to bed at night or wake up in the morning, or whether or not a man should bathe every day. That's a type of bias. We're all biased. What is with the pontificating? I should not be pontificating this late at night. This is what happens when you talk with Oxhorn at late night, he just starts pontificating. That shouldn't be okay. Baby Zane says I was going to go camping, but it was so bad I had to stay at home. Oh, that's a bummer. I love camping. I really do. It's a bummer you had to stay home. I feel your pain. There are a lot of people jumping in World of Warcraft right now. Is that Vythrin? Yes, that is Vythrin. Who's this? Sergeant Wolfhartix. Edo Higuma says, Pontifex Oximus Maximus. That's great. Kenny Chan says, I like the way you read the narration, Oxhorn. Well, thank you. Thank you. Who knows, maybe I'll have to do an audiobook when it comes down to it. Alright. What time is it? Oathblade said, hey, why not see if Audible would hire you to read? Maybe? Maybe they should hire me to read. I don't know what time I would use to read, but... That's the thing, I love reading. I just don't have time to read anymore. Every moment I spend reading could be spent making machinima or earning money. It's a hard choice. Metal Ninja says T-minus 1 hour and 10 minutes. This is the great bet. So what do you guys think? Is it going to go out the moment it goes live to the world, or will it go offline an hour before it goes live to the world, 10 minutes before it goes live to the world? When will the beta go offline? And you're right, that is a yak. Kenny Chan says reading to your child will enrich them. That's true. Reading to a kid is definitely worth the time. I read to my son today. It had more pictures than text, but it was still a book. Alright, next chapter. Oxhorn, the yak can hold Tarn along with Kodos? Really? Like, I could mount my Kodo and then mount a yak? Cool. Yeah, I'd do that. X says, if Europe's releases anything to go by, it'll be very clogged and buggy. With any luck, Blizzard learned in the past few hours and attempted some fixing. Yeah, this is actually something I predicted. A friend of mine called me to get me all excited about this, and I said, look, you're gonna wait for it to go live, and then you're gonna have to wait another 5 hours for them to fix their bugs so that you can actually log on. That's my call right there. I'm calling a buggy launch. Not that Blizzard can't handle a launch such as this. No. I just don't think anyone can handle a launch such as this. It's a complicated launch with lots of people in interest. Alright, here's chapter 12. I guess the last one was chapter 11. Anyway, this one is called chapter 12. The Narcotic Effects of Silver Blood. Alright, X, don't read too much into my key bindings over here. Yeah, well, I'll just leave it at that. Sea lion corpses littered the deck. It was still slippery with the silver blood, so the sailors were sure to be careful. Is he alright? Asked Cloran. Turner went to Daryl, who lay on the deck in a pile, and stretched him out on his back. Hey, buddy, are you alive? Daryl opened his eyes, but could not move his limbs or his mouth. Look at me if you can. Darrell blinked and looked at Turner. His eyes were clear and he was conscious, but other than that he was motionless. "What's wrong with him?" asked Richards. He leaned over Darrell and frowned. "Blink once if you can understand me," said Turner. Darrell blinked once. "Blink once if you can understand me," said Turner. Darrell blinked once. "I just read that, didn't I?" "At least he has his wits," said Richards. "Actually, I'm not sure about that. He was the only one to drink the wine." "Blink twice if you think Richards deserves to be thrown overboard," said Turner, and Darrell eagerly blinked twice. The crew laughed, and Richards stood up. "Ha! He can throw me overboard when he can support his own weight." "I am no physician," said Turner, "but maybe if we get some food in him, the poison will more easily run its course." "Don't feed him anything until he's strong enough to swallow," said Cloran at the wheel. "I don't want him choking to death." "I suppose I should go fix something for the rest of us," said Greaves. He sat with his back against the door and pulled the bone dart out of his thigh with a grunt. "No, you sit still," said Turner. "You managed to save Darrell, kill a few man-wraiths, and left aboard with a dart in your leg, so I'll cook up something." Turner walked to the door and then turned around. "But you had all better help me clean this deck after we finish eating." Turner closed the door and Mallory propped up Darrell against it so that he could see everything. The sailors then piled the sea lion carcasses, but the sun disappeared and the moon started to fade into view. Cloran sighed heavily. "Get Darrell into some clean clothes, and put him to bed. The rest of you eat and start the night shift. There's no sense having us all out here when the sun isn't out." The crew obliged and went below deck except Len, who reached for the wheel. "Not tonight, Len," said Cloran, holding the wheel firmly. But you have been sailing without rest for days now. Get some sleep." "I'll sleep easy when we're on our way back from Mayotes. Right now, I just want to get there." Len sighed, nodded, and went below, leaving Cloran at the wheel as night encompassed the bobbing ship. By the way, this chapter has a big plot spoiler in it, so if you're concerned about that, mute it, and in about 10 minutes when I finish reading it, I'll wave frantically at the camera to let you know that I'm done, and you can unmute it. Morning brought still winds and clear skies. The sails drooped, and Wave Grazer moved but little while the sailors cleaned the deck. Greaves took a dozen or so sea lion carcasses below to see what he could strip from their bones to eat. Darrell leaned against the cabin door and rested while the crew worked tirelessly to get the silver blood off the deck. Richards tossed the remaining carcasses overboard one by one. "X, I'm not going to do it. This is the beta. I'm not going to waste my time binding things, only to have the beta servers collapse in an hour." Right? No, I do appreciate your passion, though. Someone is putting down a whole bunch of grills. Wow. Alright, let me get a burger out of this first. There we go. Thank you, my friend. Where was I? Darrell leaned against the cabin door and rested while the crew worked tirelessly to get the silver blood off the deck. Richards tossed the remaining carcasses overboard one by one. "Looks like the fishes will be getting a good meal today," he said, hurling a line as far as he could. "Oh, my poor deck," said Turner sadly, scrubbing off the blood. "I'm not sure if fish eat this kind of meat," said Darrell. He had regained the ability to speak and eat, but he could not yet move his limbs. "Some fish do, like sharks." "Is a shark a fish? I thought it was more of a... well, I don't know what it is, but it seems to be too big to be a fish." "My poor clean deck is clean no more," said Turner with a sigh. "I'm pretty sure they are fishes," said Mallory, scrubbing hard. He and Turner had buckets of seawater and rough sponges and were scrubbing the silver blood off, washing it into the sea. The creatures of the sea can be divided into 3 groups: fish, squid, and monster. I think fish fits better than squid or monster. "They seem to be monstrous fish to me," said Jenkins from atop the mainmast. "I'll never be able to see wood again. This accursed blood has stained my deck silver," moaned Turner. Cloran stood quietly at the wheel, fuming at the lack of wind, but thankful at least for a slow-moving current. Once the deck was clean, the sailors could man the oars, which would help a little, but it was wind he needed more than anything. Just then, something in the water caught his eye. He looked to the right and raised an eyebrow. "There are your sharks, Richards," he said. "Where? I don't see," said Richards, but then he did. Mallory, Len, and Richards walked to the gunwale to have a look. The sailors could see the long white shapes of big fish just below the surface, slowly swimming alongside the ship. Some would stop and watch the sailors intently with black, unblinking eyes until the ship passed them. Then quickly swim to the bow of the ship, stop, and again follow the sailors with their eyes. Richard laughed. I was right! These fellows look awfully hungry. He picked up another lion carcass and tossed it overboard. 3 sharks swarmed it when it hit the water and devoured it before their eyes. I've never seen sharks so eager, said Len. With a bit of effort, Darrell managed to turn his head towards the sailors, but he could not see the water from where he sat. Hey, I want to see. Someone bring me to the side. Len and Mallory lifted Darrell up and threw his arm over each of their shoulders. They brought the limp sailor to the edge of the ship so he could see. My, they are begging, just like dogs, he said with a laugh, and Richards threw in the last of the lions. That's it, Sharkies, no more food for you, so go away, he said, but the sharks did not go away. Instead, they swarmed close alongside the ship and every now and then faced the sailors, staring them down with their large black eyes. Stupid sharks, said Turner, still scrubbing. He pushed bloody water off the deck to the sharks that had gathered on his side. They're here because of the blood. Stop cleaning the deck so that they can go away, said Darrell. No way! I don't want this blood drying on the deck in the sun, then I'll never get it off. The slow current that was carrying the ship suddenly dissipated. The sea grew calm, and in a few moments, Wavegrazer lost all momentum. She slowly rocked in the churning waves, and the sharks circled the ship. Perfect timing, said Cloran in frustration. He left the wheel and walked to the gunwale where his men stood. Let's hope the wind picks up soon, or I'll have to stick you boys with the oars. We don't have another day to spare. I don't think I like these sharks staring at me, said Richards at last. Turner, stop cleaning that deck. It's as clean as I can get it for now anyway, said Turner, standing up and wiping his brow. I'm afraid we have the silver deck forever. This stuff acts just like dye. He rinsed the deck with a bucket of clean water and then joined his friends at the ship's edge. They sure are acting odd, he said, peering over the side. Maybe it's something in the blood, wondered Mallory, but just then the ship trembled and a low groan came up at them from the waves beneath. In a flash, the sharks scrambled away and disappeared. Whoa, I didn't think sharks could make such a noise, said Len. They can't, said Cloran. A second low-pitched groan sent the waves around them shimmering, and the ship itself reverberated. Trembled. The ship itself trembled. I think we need to go now, said Richard, stepping away from the edge. What do you want him to do, Richard? Summon the wind, said Mallory, and a third bellow shook the ship so that the mast swayed. Jenkins, get down from there, ordered Cloran. Suddenly the ship lurched, and an ivory spike pierced through the hull, coming out the other side. The ship tipped, and the sailors slid along the deck. Len and Mallory lost hold of Darrell, and he tumbled across the deck, caught by the gunwale on the port side. Wavegrazer would have capsized, but the spike held her in place, and when it pulled out of the ship, she rocked back upright. The mainmast swayed and threw Jenkins as he was trying to climb down. With a cry, Jenkins sailed through the air and hit the water hard with a splat. Jenkins! Cried the sailors, and they ran to the edge. Jenkins resurfaced and coughed. He held his chest and wheezed hard. Someone get him, ordered Cloran, and get some weapons up here. Greaves opened the cabin door and came onto the deck to see what was afoot, but the sailors ran past him and below to fetch their spears and harpoons. Before he could ask what happened, the waters reverberated with that same low groan. The sailors emerged with their weapons, and Len prepared to jump in after Jenkins. The waves grew angrier as a bulge appeared in the water beneath Jenkins. A white, gleaming ivory horn slowly emerged from underneath the wheezing sailor and lifted him into the air. Jenkins cried out hoarsely and clung to the horn as its owner surfaced. From the depths of the sea emerged a beast only known in tales, a giant, black, hard-nosed horned whale. Its face was rough and knobby, and barnacles grew all over it. Its body was black and it gleamed in the sun. Its horn was white and spiraled from the tip down into a thicker base that grew in the shape of an upside-down triangle. The crew stood aghast, but Cloran shook his head. Figures. The horned whale bellowed and lunged at Wavegrazer, piercing her hull, although this time it didn't go all the way through. The impact flung Jenkins off the horn and into the largest sail, where he tumbled back onto the deck, landing next to Darrell. Good night, Vithrin. Have a good one. "You all right?" asked Darrell in his crumpled position, unable to move. "I'll live," said Jenkins with a wheeze, holding his chest. On any other day, something like that would have been fun. The ship lurched again and again as the whale tried to free its horn, but it was stuck, and the whale groaned angrily. The sailors began throwing harpoons and spears at the great beast, but they stuck in its hide and did no more damage than a splinter would a man. It did, however, annoy the whale, and his bellows became louder and shorter. "Spears won't work here," said Greaves, and he took up his great man-wraith chisel. With a running leap, he cast himself overboard and onto the giant horn. He crawled along it and then climbed up onto the whale's nose. Hefting the weapon upwards, he came down with tremendous force, and blow after blow chipped away at the hard nose of the moaning whale. The whale twisted and lurched, and the ship rocked back and forth, but it could not free its horn, and Greaves' work finally drew blood. The hard shell protecting its nose cracked, and red blood drained from the whale like a river. Jenkins tossed Greaves a long harpoon, and, stretching his arms up, he came down with the pointed spear into the wound he had created, driving the weapon deep into the beast's face until the shaft disappeared. The whale squealed and shot out high-pitched peals through the waves, and the sailors covered their ears in agony, but Greaves managed to crawl along the horn back to the ship. The sailors clung to the masts and railings to keep from being tossed overboard. "This will drive us mad long before he dies," called Len over the din, but then the whale made a new noise. If the sailors thought its squeals were already frantic, they became even more so, and wave after wave of water lashed across the deck as the whale kicked its tail. The sailors peered over the edge to see what was happening. "Look there," said Turner, pointing, and the sailors could see white gleaming bodies under the waves beneath the massive whale. The sharks had returned and brought friends with them. Lured by the blood, they attacked the whale timidly at first, but then more fiercely until every shark tore off bits of the whale and devoured them. At last the whale stopped squealing, and with a final flip of its tail, became still. "Can you believe it?" whispered Richards under his breath. "My little sharkies have come to rescue us." "Don't believe that for a moment," said Mallory. "They would devour you in a second if they could, but this whale is a much bigger target." The wind finally picked up, and Cloran helped Darrell up off the deck, propping him up against the door. "Lower the sails quickly," he said to the crew. "The last thing we want to do is drag this whale around." The men lowered the sails and saw then that the corpse was gone. Only a bloody skeleton remained. The sharks had picked the bones clean and disappeared. "It seems that they finally got their fill," said Richards with a laugh, but he didn't laugh long. The ship creaked, and then suddenly it tipped to the side. The bones began to sink, and the ship was sinking with it. "Get that horn out of the ship!" called Cloran, and the crew took out their weapons. Len, Greaves, and Mallory climbed onto the horn and hacked at it, but they couldn't even make the smallest mark. The ship rose steadily out of the water, and the men on deck began to slide towards the skeleton. At last the weight became too much, and with a sudden jerk the horn snapped at the base. Wavegrazer fell back into the sea with a splash, sending water out in a wide ring and up and onto the deck. The bones vanished into the depths of the sea, but the ship tilted to one side and slowly began to sink. "We're taking on water," said Len. The sailors went below and found water up to their ankles. It was coming out of the crew's bunkroom, and Mallory waded in. "Get me some boards and nails," he said. A giant hole went through the very hull of the ship where the horned whale had skewered it through with its first attack. The sailors fetched some boards and tried frantically to cover up the hole, but the water rose steadily higher and the ship tilted sharply. From outside the hole a shadow passed, and then the ship lurched. Something scraped along Wavegrazer, making a deafening noise, and it lifted the ship up until Wavegrazer leaned slightly the other way. The water stopped pouring in from the hole beneath the waterline, and Mallory quickly and sloppily boarded it up. "What's that, another whale?" wondered Jenkins aloud, but Cloran, angry at the whale, angry at the sharks, and angry at the whole situation, stormed away and climbed on deck. "Cloran," said Darrell, who was lying on his side near the door, but Cloran could see what had happened. He stood in amazement as his crew joined him from below the deck. There, side by side with Wavegrazer, sat a large ship with a blue sail. It held Wavegrazer up by supporting its side, and ropes had been cast onto her deck and pulled tight. Men arrayed in black uniforms lined the side of the blue-sailed ship. They wore somber but proud faces, and their dark eyes were both sad and sharp. Their leader, a man with keen eyes, a long brown coat, and a wide-brimmed brown hat, took off his hat and saluted Cloran. "Percy!" exclaimed the crew quietly, but Cloran stood motionless. Captain Cloran Hastings, cried Percy from the deck of his ship, Bluebane. When we last parted ways, you swore to inflict justice upon me if we ever met again. We are here to offer our help and receive whatever justice you deem fitting. I'll finish that in a minute. Cigar break. Tough little ship, says best is to get. Indeed it is. And had I begun reading from the beginning of the novel, you would have understood why it was a tough little ship. It has something to do with a special stone that glows blue. Ha! In the game, someone says, "Sweet, just got into the beta. Looking for a guild." Poor guy's got like 50 minutes. Well, here we are waiting. When do you think the servers will go kaboom? Anytime now, I bet. ThunderGod91 said, "Did you get my fan art?" I haven't checked my mail since the last show, so I'm not sure. But I will check before the show, of course. Alright, continuing. "Can you hear what they are saying?" asked Mallory to Turner. The two men stood in the dinghy that was resting by the side of Wavegrazer, working to patch one of the holes in the hull. Cloran and Percy sat on the deck of Bluebane, talking lowly together, and the sailors strained to hear the conversation. Turner shook his head and turned back to his work. No, they are talking too discreetly. Mallory lifted a plank in place, and Turner used long nails to set it. A head appeared in the hole they were covering from inside Wavegrazer, one of Percy's men. X says, "Guys, what book is this, by the way? I came in..." Okay, you guys are answering it anyway. Thank you. Yes, this is a novel that I wrote, and I am working on publishing it. You guys are getting a sneak peek. This chapter right here is a spoiler chapter, so considering I haven't waved at the screen yet, I'm sure there are people who don't want spoilers that are not listening to me right now, so it doesn't matter. Good night, Miller Ninja. Pleasure to have you here. We shall see you on Thursday. A head appeared in the hole they were covering from inside Wavegrazer, one of Percy's men. "Here, use this," the man said. He lowered down smaller boards, a hand drill, and some wooden dowels. "You can get a nice flush seam with these. Nails will rust out." "Thanks," said Turner slowly, and the sailor left. On deck, men from both ships were sawing, trimming, and shaving wood, and a train of men with buckets bailed water overboard as they scooped it from below deck. Sailors dangled from ropes over the side of Wavegrazer and trimmed cracks and breaks, sanded seams, and made broken edges straight as the men on deck got wood ready to repair the holes. The majority of Percy's sailors, however, took to removing the horn from Wavegrazer. With ropes tied to the base of the horn and wrapped around back on deck with pulleys, they slowly extracted the massive horn from the hull of the ship. The three small dinghies were in the water below it, and when the tip finally emerged, the sailors let go of the ropes. The horn crashed onto the boats, cracking in the center, and Wavegrazer lurched upward after shedding the weight. The sailors clapped and cheered. "A horned whale!" exclaimed Boff, the first mate of Bluebane, as he and many of Cloran's men sawed and prepared wood for patching the holes. "I always thought they were creatures of myth. I would love to have seen it." "It was pretty intimidating," said Richards with a saw in his hand. "I never imagined them being so big." "What did you boys do to make it grumpy?" "I think it was the sea lion blood we were washing overboard," said Len, who was also cutting wood. It lured the sharks, and I bet it lured the whale, too. Aye, that's probably what it was, said Boff. That's how we found you. We followed a trail of silver film on the water. We didn't know it was blood at the time, and thought perhaps it was some menacing creature wreaking destruction upon the sea. Jenkins stood cutting wood, but did not say a word. So is that what you have been doing since we last saw you? Patrolling the seas to make them safe? Asked Len, and Boff nodded. We figured it was the least we could do. Over the years, we've heard rumors of all sorts of dangers that we mainly avoided. We were just now hunting for a rumored floating castle when we stumbled upon you. Ha! Exclaimed Richards. We just came from there, and I'll tell you, it was filled with some of the strangest creatures I have ever seen. Jenkins threw down his saw, and it clattered across the deck. He angrily walked towards the main mast, climbed the riggings to the very top of it, and remained there, motionless. Boff glanced at Len worriedly. Did I say something to anger him, he asked, but Len shook his head. I'll go talk with him. Don't worry about it. Len set his saw down and walked to the base of the mast. Jenkins, are you all right? He called up, but Jenkins turned away and did not respond. Len frowned and climbed up after him. A cold wind picked up and blew through Len's clothing, chilling him. At the top he found Jenkins sitting with his legs in the riggings, staring silently out over the water. Len glanced around. He saw Blue Bane to the side of Wavegrazer, where Cloran and Percy were talking on deck. Wavegrazer was now resting evenly in the water, and Percy's crew was hard at work repairing her. The small boats were hauling the two halves of the massive horn, taking one piece towards each ship. Far off, Len could see a silver trail leading away from Wavegrazer, and the filmy substance formed a path that went farther than he could see. Hey, Jenkins, is anything the matter? He asked. Jenkins remained motionless and stared out to sea, but eventually nodded his head. Yes, something is the matter, he said softly. We sit here on our ship, having lived our lives as true and honest sailors. But Richards is down there sharing stories and jokes with a thief, one of the worst kinds of villain. He shook his head. I would have rather seen Wavegrazer sink than to be saved by these vermin. Ah, said Len, nodding his head. I see. There were over 20 ships at that little cove of theirs. Each ship could easily hold a dozen sailors. Do you realize how many men that makes, trapped on island prisons, scattered across the sea? Yet on the sea they do not get justice. Marauders are rarely caught and punished. They can go on sailing as if they did nothing wrong, profiting from their evil while we work hard for years to earn an honest day's pay. I can't work side by side with these crooks and laugh and joke. I simply can't. Len looked out to sea and nodded. Light clouds obscured the sunny sky and the wind became chill. They have resigned themselves to Cloran's judgment, said Len. King Bosun gave Cloran command of these waves and the ships upon them until the journey ends, and I believe he will judge them wisely. He should have punished them when we first found out what they were. Cloran was taken by surprise, just like we all were. I can tell you that he was more upset about this than any of us. He and Percy go way back, and it was as if a brother had betrayed him. A lone bird descended out of the sky and, circling over the two ships for a while, finally perched in the riggings next to Jenkins. A bird! Called Mallory, pointing upwards, and the sailors from both ships cheered. Land! We are near land! The bird sidestepped along the ropes, then leapt up and flew away. Len and Jenkins followed it with their eyes while the sailors below cheered and hollered. It looks like we may make it to Mayotes in time after all, said Len with a nod, but Jenkins still wore a stone face. Concerned for his friend, Len put his arm around Jenkins' shoulder. You were right, he said softly. Justice needs to be brought upon Percy and his crew for what they did, but from what I can see, the sailors of Blue Bane honestly regret the deeds they have done, and are even taking steps to amend them. Their deeds can never be amended, said Jenkins. It does no harm for them to attempt to reform themselves, said Len softly. Should we really hold this against them forever? Jenkins said nothing. Are even thieves beyond forgiveness? Jenkins looked down. I believe they are beyond redemption. It is not for us to decide who can or cannot be redeemed. We can merely judge by what we know is right. These sailors have acted kindly and have been respectful ever since they got here, and I believe they are truly sorry for what they have done. It is now up to us to forgive them and go on with our lives. We may not, and probably shouldn't, ever forget what they have done, but we can't hate them forever. Jenkins sighed and smiled at Len. I appreciate you coming up to talk. I'd just like to think about it alone for a bit. Len nodded and climbed down to finish helping with the repairs. When Jenkins eventually came back down, he was quiet still, but his face was calm and he worked alongside Percy's men without complaint. The men had patched all of the external holes and were now sanding them smooth. The inside of the ship was damp and messy, but the structural damages were repaired. The sailors in the dinghies below had taken the two halves of the massive horn and brought them on board the two ships. The men tightly tied the top half of the horn to the prow of Wavegrazer to be used as a figurehead, so that it stuck out like a gleaming pike, and the bottom half was affixed to the prow of Blue Bane. Cloran and Percy watched the working sailors from the deck of Blue Bane. "They seem to be getting along fine despite it all," said Percy. Cloran nodded but remained silent. He sat down with his back against the rail, and Percy sat beside him. At length, Cloran looked over at his friend. "I want to know why, Percy, you resorted to piracy." Percy pursed his lips in thought, searching for words. "That isn't an easy question to answer. 10 years ago, if you had told me that someday I would be the captain of a band of marauders, I wouldn't have believed you. I didn't intend for this to happen, but men do such things when need persuades them. Perhaps I can better empathize if you start from the beginning. All right, it was during the war and times were hard, as you know fully well. My crew stuck with me, but we had no consignments and nothing to eat. In desperation, we sailed to Rogveld in hopes that someone there had worked for us, but there was none. We didn't have the supplies to sail back, and were stuck there. So one night, Boff and I snuck aboard a merchant vessel that was moored at Ketubim, and we stole some spices to sell on the market. Just enough to get enough money for supplies to sail home. They caught us, however, and we fled Rogveld before the authorities could catch us. Afterwards, I was upset with myself for resorting to thievery, and so I tried to make amends by searching the nearby waters for marauding vessels. We came across other merchants who told us of a large vessel with a blue sail that was harrying the coast, and so we sought the ship. At last we found it, and we took it by surprise during the night." "So you killed the marauders on board, took their vessel, and became marauders yourselves?" "Not quite. We had them at sword point and ordered them to surrender, which they did, but the captain of the ship requested to talk with me in private." Percy sighed and bowed his head. "Oh, how I wish I had never listened to the man. But at the time, the only thought on my mind was the aching within my belly, and so I met with him. He bartered with me, and suggested that I let him and his crew go. In exchange, he would pay me a tribute from every merchant vessel he sacked on the waters. He told me tales of riches and of enough food so that my boys would never be hungry again, and I was swayed, Cloran, by his slick words. We made a pact, and he swore tribute and allegiance to me under the most revered of their piratical oaths. He took my ship, and I took his, for I had fallen in love with her." Percy fingered the deck and smiled, caressing the smooth wood. "She is the finest ship I have seen, and she has served me well ever since." "Didn't you think of the people that would suffer and die because of what you did?" Percy's smile faded, and he nodded. "Part of the pact was that the marauders would spare the lives of the sailors they captured, and if it came down to it, to flee rather than to take human life." "Did you really expect a marauder to keep his word?" asked Cloran earnestly, and he was quickly growing angry. "Well, yes. I know that it is foolish to put faith in the faithless, Cloran, and I make no excuses. I trusted in the oath they took with me and hoped for the best. I do admit, reluctantly, that if I had heard of any deaths at the hands of my retainers, I would have probably turned a blind eye. As it was, I sailed the seas looking for other marauding vessels to capture and forced to become my retainers. I have 8 vessels under my authority now, and they report to me every morning." "A ship called Rough Waters. Is a ship called Rough Waters under your employ?" asked Cloran slowly, looking him dead in the eyes. Percy cocked his head sideways. "Rough Waters? No, I've never heard of it before." Said Cloran rather dully, but he was secretly relieved. "Anyhow, I took my crew to the island where you found me, and I set up a storehouse there to keep our stolen goods. I sail between Rogveld and Meniga to sell them. The marauders arrive at the island to drop off my share and report to me how many ships they have taken. In the state I was in, I tried to convince myself that I was doing good, saving the lives of marauders, saving lives that the marauders would have otherwise destroyed, and taking wealth from the hands of the evil, even though, by doing so, I became evil. But I never fully convinced myself. I always knew what I was doing, and I grew to hate it. I began to look for a way out, but if I showed any sign of weakness, my retainers would turn against me and destroy me and my men. I felt stuck in a world that I did not want to be part of. In a way, I was glad, Cloran, that day you caught me, for at least I wouldn't be living a lie anymore. I didn't have the strength to stand against these villains. I'm glad you do. Cloran stood and walked away from Percy. He stopped, gazed out to sea, and then turned around. We found an island, he said, with many sailors on it. They told us that they had been captured by marauders and then set loose on the island rather than being killed. Good, said Percy, happily getting up. That means the marauders have kept their word. But we also found wreckage by the reef of many graves. The crew of the ship had been killed and their bodies arrayed on the shore. Percy's face grew dark and he held his chin. It is possible, he said at length, that there are other marauders patrolling the sea besides the ones under my leadership. Commanding a ship named Rough Waters, perhaps, said Cloran, but I suppose we will never know for sure. Percy stood next to Cloran and sighed, staring at the deck. I never thought beyond myself and my men, he said. The day you stumbled upon my storehouse awakened me. Not only was I relieved to be freed from my secrecy, but the moment I saw your eyes, my heart sank to the bottom of my soul. I knew then how horrible it felt to betray a friend. I realized that I had betrayed my king and my crew, and as I sailed away from the cove to avoid responsibility for my deeds, horror struck me as I realized that I had betrayed the memory of Reuben. Percy turned away from Cloran and talked softly. That is why I was hoping our paths would cross again. I could have sailed off in my fast ship and never returned, but the memory of old Captain Reuben stung me in the heart, and I knew that I couldn't live with myself if I knew that I had betrayed him. Whoops, I've got two news in there too close together. And I knew that I couldn't live with myself if I knew that I had betrayed him. This is why I'm reading it aloud, folks. I am finding things I otherwise would not have found. Alright, let's see if I can find this. If I knew that I had knew that I couldn't live with myself. Okay. Knew that I couldn't live with. And I knew that I couldn't live with myself if... No, I'll just take that out. If I had betrayed them. And I knew that I couldn't live with myself if I had betrayed him. If I had betrayed him. And I knew that I couldn't live with myself if I had betrayed him. It was he that taught me the sea and the stars. Cloran sighed and rubbed his eyes, but at last he lifted his gaze and grasped the shoulder of his old shipmate. I will believe you. I know I have every right to doubt you, yet I can't help but want to trust you. However, I can't let you leave without suffering the consequences for your deeds. Do you understand? Percy lowered his gaze and nodded. Both captains looked at their sailors, working side by side to repair Wavegrazor. I wish I could do it all over again, said Percy. I'm a horrible captain. I led my boys into wrongdoing. They'll never be able to forgive me. They are responsible for their own actions just like you are responsible for yours. But perhaps you can find a way to redeem yourselves. The two captains climbed aboard Wavegrazor and Len and Boff assembled the sailors on the deck. Percy examined the repairs done to Wavegrazor and nodded his approval, and Cloran stood before Percy's men. I want to thank you for saving us and helping us with the repairs, he said first, and his own crew clapped in appreciation. Cloran held his hands behind his back, lowered his face, and began to pace along the deck. It seems that I am faced with the unpleasant task of righting the wrongs that are committed at sea. You, as sailors, followed your captain towards the end he chose for you, and that end was piracy. The sailors of the Blue Bane stood erect and silent. I don't need a "the" in there. The sailors of Bluebane. We have all been faced with hard times. Luck on the sea changes with the winds, and she can bring us prosperity one day or poverty the next. But it is what a man does when faced with such hardships that shows his character. Evil times are no excuse for evil deeds. Cloran gazed at the men that stood before him and was moved to pity. Some of them had families waiting for them, and Cloran was not eager to do what he was about to. And yet these very men, though now in repentance, had been instrumental in ruining the lives of other sailors. Justice must be wrought, even on the sea. You banished other sailors when you took their ships to live their lives on cramped islands, and so now I banish you. From this day onward you are forbidden to land on Menegan soil or sail through Menegan waters upon penalty of death. The sailors gasped and some wept, for Stren was their home. But they also saw the mercy in Cloran's decision, and though visibly upset, not one protested. Percy walked forward with downcast eyes and a somber expression, and spoke with a quiet voice. Lads, I am sorry that my leadership has brought this upon you. I'll never forgive myself for leading you astray, but if you will still follow me, I will lead you to greatness. It is my plan to flee to Rogveld, where, with their government's permission, we will atone for our crimes by fighting piracy on the open sea. We have fought marauders before and defeated them. Let us right our wrongs and keep the seas safe. I remind you that we have an advantage. We know the habits of these villains and can recognize their ships. Together, we can make a new name for ourselves. No longer will people know us for theft and destruction, but instead when they speak of Bluebane, they will think of justice and honesty. Our name will become a blessing to whichever land accepts us. Though upset at being banished, Percy's men found his words encouraging and full of hope. At Boff's lead, they saluted Percy. The sailors of Bluebane boarded their vessel and got to work preparing to sail west towards Rogveld. Cloran caught Percy before he boarded his ship and slipped him a note. Give this to the elders when you arrive at Rogveld. It is my personal guarantee that you mean no mischief, and it is a plea for them to work with you to rid the waves of the menace you know so well. Perhaps my endorsement will help in some way. Thank you, Cloran, said Percy with a smile. The two men hugged, and then Percy boarded his vessel. The sailors cast aside the ropes between the ships, and Bluebane eased away from Wavegrazer, sailing west towards Rogveld. Cloran, Len, and the rest of the crew stood by and waved at the sailors as the ship sailed away. Was I right? Asked Len to Jenkins. The lookout nodded. You were. It was a fair punishment, and even I almost feel sorry for them. Almost. As the ship grew smaller on the evening horizon, the men of Wavegrazer could hear them sing, and they sang the funeral song of the sea. We send you forth with fond farewell, atop the sea and amongst the waves. Through the storm and raging swell, we wish you love and brighter days. Atop the sea and amongst the waves, you go to rest in deep darkness. We wish you love and brighter days as you sail through the abyss. You go to rest in deep darkness, though in our thoughts you'll always be. As you sail through the abyss, our prayers will be concerning thee. Though in our hearts you'll always be, your spirit will forever sleep. Our prayers will be concerning thee as you travel through the deep. Your spirit will forever sleep through the storm and raging swell. As you travel through the deep, we send you forth with fond farewell. Chapter 13. Oh my gosh. I've been sitting in one place for far too long. Whew. It's getting hot in this little room. But you know what? Not so hot that I can't enjoy the rest of my gentlemanly cigar. Where are we at, ladies and gentlemen? What time is it? What time is it? It is 11:34. 11:34. We are still logged in, and the beta servers are still online. What in tarnation? What the flippin' grat is going on here? Why? Why is Blizzard still keeping the beta servers online? Sweet Writing says Thunder God 91. Elizabeth says, I am loving it, want one. I'm thrilled. I really am. I'm really glad to hear your feedback, guys. This book is hopefully going to be on the market in time for Christmas, this Christmas. I'm not going to wait another 10 years to get this thing out. But that's only if everything goes according to plan. Let's pray it does. Let's pray it does. Oh, man. I laid the butt of my cigar in some ash, and now it's all in my mouth. Well, are you guys excited? We've got a crash coming on soon. The entire World of Warcraft will go up in flames. The stars will fall. The moon will be occluded. If that's the proper termage. If termage is the proper termage. And the world will fall into the abyss. But it makes for good entertainment. Of all those in my party, I seem to be the only one left. Ah! I'm waving! Sorry. I'm waving and I'm not reading anymore. There we go. There we go. Perfect. So now, if you closed your ears or turned off the volume so as to avoid a spoiler, there you go. Don't you hate it when you get ash in your cup? It wasn't in my cup, it was on the bottom of it. Alright, you know what? I'm going to send out a tweet to everybody in the world to let them know that we're all here. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. Indeed. Alright, so the other day I put a poll on my Oxhorn Facebook page asking people if it is manly or not to use emoticons as a man when texting. Or tweeting, for that matter. So before I tell you the results of this poll, what are your thoughts in the chat? Let me know your thoughts. Manly or not to use winky faces and smileys in emails and so forth as a man when writing. ThunderGuy91 says no. Oathblade says why would it be? X just keeps giving me tongues outs and smiley faces and hearts and winks. And then he says male. I'm suddenly a little uncomfortable. No, it's alright. No judging here. Man, I don't do as well with cigars when I'm sick, but I'll work through it. Power. I'm playing Final Fantasy X and listening to you, and drinking a classy cup of Earl Grey, and it depends on the emote. Thank you, T-Lad. That's actually a really classy thing to do, listening to Oxhorn drinking some Earl Grey while waiting for the World of Warcraft to end. Well, the World of Warcraft beta to end, anyway. Alright, let's take a look at the poll, see what the results are. 118 people say emotes are harmless. 41 people say it depends on the emoticon. 21 people say, does it really matter? 5 people say, unmanly! And 1 person says noob. Oh, there are more. Nope, that's it. Well, so there are the results. Looks like the majority of people agree with you. Good. Because I use winky faces and smileys in emails all the time. And I was feeling self-conscious. Is there someone behind me? Maybe my wife is up. Nope. Nope, that's a noise outside. What's that? Noise outside? Outside my window? Wolves? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Who? Nope. They're coming for me. They've found me at last. The wolves know my scent. No, I'm just kidding. It's somebody grabbing a garbage can and bringing it down the driveway. Okay, this cigar is falling apart on me. Elizabeth says that it's okay, as long as it's with someone you know. That's a girl's opinion. Alright, it is good to know a girl's opinion. It's the panda exterminator. It can't be the panda exterminator. There are no pandas around here. Oh, maybe it's a panda. All seems quiet on the Western Front. Ah ha ha, Thunder God. Ah ha 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 ha. Oh, that joke is so vanilla, wow. And I do realize that it is Blizzard's joke, so. Whew. It's getting hot in this little room, and my hat is not helping. Right. Ha! Sweet, cuddly, vicious little panda. I do believe that is a Tropic Thunder quote, am I right? I believe it is. Hey, it's Nova Domina, my beautiful wife! Hey, Nova Domina! We are all waiting for the servers to crash. It's got about 18 minutes, nope, 17 minutes now before it crashes and it goes kaboom! I have been reading the fans' chapters from my book, The Tale of Cloran Hastings. So far they have loved it. I am not ashamed to say, neither is it prideful or arrogant or not even narcissistic of me to admit that my book is already a hit. But I just got to get it done and published. Done and published. How's the baby, Nova? Is he being good in the other room? Do I need to go and spank him? No, I don't spank him. He's only 4 months old. I'm not that vicious. Whoa, is that a turtle mount? Oh, what is that? Have these been around a long time, or are these new? Oh, is that a that's a panda mount. Oh, that is so cool. He's watching me. Hey, little Gavin. It's a panda mount. That's so cool. Oh, there's a ring in his nose, of course. Thunder God said he's excited to be the winner of the Gerber Challenge. I sure hope so. You know, I have been trying to vote every day. I forget. I think I've only voted maybe 5 or 6 times. I feel bad. I should really be voting every time. That's neat. That turtle mount is really cool. Out of scotch. What does one do when one is out of scotch? Summon more. Oh, scotch, come from the dark recesses of my desk and fill my cup with your golden splendor. Indeed. Donuts. Who was so cruel as to mention donuts? Now all I can think about are donuts. That is just evil. Evil. Right, let's see how many pages are in this next chapter. 49 pages? Yeah, I'm not going to get through all of that in 14 minutes. It's weird. Some of the chapters are like 20 pages long, others 50. I don't know why I did that. I know people hate that. People prefer short chapters, which is why the Da Vinci Code was as popular as it was. Short attention span, you see. Oh well. You know what? I am going to end my reign here in the World of Warcraft beta by riding my Kodo. There we are. I am on my Kodo, Buzzco, and this is how I prefer to go out. And this panda has to keep showing me every single mount he has. Yes, I see that you have a mount that has been around since Burning Crusade. But then again, I'm on a mount that has been around since Vanilla WoW, so whatever. I like my white Kodo. Bacon pancake. Elizabeth, you are just cruel. This is cruel and unusual punishment. Is this the way you're going to treat Oxhorn? Talk about donuts and then bacon-covered pancakes. That is an unfit punishment for a man such as myself. Now I'm craving bacon-covered pancakes. Oh. Moon into Mulgore. You want me to ride to Mulgore? That sounds fitting. Yeah, let me get out of the city first. Let us ride to Mulgore. How long do you think it'll take us to ride there on my swift mount? If I remember how to get there. Of course I know how to get there. Are you kidding me? I'm Oxhorn. Nova Diamond, my beautiful wife, says, fried chicken wasn't enough? Oh, honey, you know that your cooking is enough for me. It is so delicious. She made me fried chicken. Last night she made me beef stew with grilled cheese sandwiches. I'm like, how did I get so lucky to marry this woman? You know what she made me for dinner a few nights ago? Breakfast. She made me breakfast for dinner. There's really nothing better. Alright. We are riding into the moonrise. Or the moon set. Whatever you want to call it. It's midnight. Is the moon setting at midnight? No, it's not. It's high in the sky. This is the noon of the night. Ah, fond memories of Vanilla WoW, completely obliterated by Cataclysm, which has changed the landscape. I know. Can I even ride to Mulgore anymore? It's funny, my latest Machinima movie, the one that I've been working on for 2 years, you know that one? It's 2 years. 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 that there is a great large segment of it that takes place in the Barrens. And yet I filmed it before Cataclysm, so it's all pre-Cataclysm Barrens. So when I do release it, people are going to go, what? Where's all the lava, Oxhorn? Oath Blade says, do you have public mail where I can send you my thoughts? Yes. So there are two ways to go about this. I have a FanBridge question and answer account where you can ask me questions and I'll send an answer. If you're on my email list, you have a link to it. If not, you can always use the contact form at oxhorn.com. There's a little hovering button that says Contact Oxhorn or Contact Me. Click on that and whatever you write there will be sent directly to me via email. Ah, the Barrens. The moon high in the sky. I remember many years ago when I first started playing World of Warcraft. The day I graduated from Mulgore to the Barrens was a very proud day. I randomly met up with these two orcs. There were very few Tauren, I recall. I was one of the only Tauren. Everyone wanted to be an orc, apparently. And we fought our way to the crossroads. The crossroads was like the next big city, and everyone was at the crossroads. And I was proud to be at the crossroads where I was doing my quests. And I recall grouping with these two guys every night for probably 3 or 4 days. And then I never met them again. I don't know who they were. But we would log in at the same time and band together and go forth in a salvo of arrows and magic. This was before being feral was actually powerful. This was back in the day when specking in feral was stupid because the feral spec was nerfed. I did it anyway. I've been a feral druid ever since the very beginning. And I remember killing Quillboar with these guys. We just camped the Quillboar. And even after our quests were done, we just killed them over and over again because it was fun. It was just the three of us, and we were killing Quillboar, and it was new. World of Warcraft was amazing. The graphics were awesome. Fun memories. I recall not understanding the goblins. Like Booty Bay, I discovered Booty Bay and Ratchet, and I didn't get the whole concept that the goblins were neutral. I'm just going to hop over here real quick. Anyway, I recall it being very confusing to me. I also recall that when I got to level 60, I thought I was really powerful. And before I had made my reputation as Oxhorn, I had made my reputation in another game called Dark Age of Camelot. I don't know if anyone remembers it. But in that game, I was a fairly well-known raid leader on my server, which happened to be the most popular server. My name was Staghorn in that game. You're seeing a pattern here. Anyway, so what I did is I put thorns on myself. Back then, thorns lasted for a good 30 minutes. And I walked into Menethil Harbor. And I never got near a guard. I never got near an actual player. I never marked myself for PvP. But I aggroed all the low-level guards in Menethil Harbor, and they attacked me, and they were being harmed by the thorns. But because I wasn't actively casting spells, I never got flagged for PvP. So these guards were attacking me and dying all over the place, but I was not marked for PvP, and so they were dying all around me. I was infuriating the Alliance. This was all on the Silverhand server. I was infuriating them. They kept wanting to kill me. They kept wanting to just goad me into attacking me so they could kill me. But I never did. I just continued to cast thorns on myself, pop into bear form, and these level 40 guards would attack me until they died. I got loads and loads of pleasure out of doing that. I don't know why. Probably the troll in me. And I got a message from somebody. He hopped on his Horde tune. And he started messaging me. He says, "My name is Lord Thamar from Percival on Dark Age of Camelot, and I remember back when you were a very well-known and respected person in Dark Age of Camelot, how could you stoop to such a low level as to troll us poor lions by killing these guards this way? And I just sat there shaking my head going, wow, someone is taking this game very seriously. I had way too much fun. I wish you could do stuff like that nowadays, but... Here we are in my favorite town/city in all of Azeroth, in the entire world of Warcraft. Good old Bloodhoof Village. I am happy to be king of this village, if I do say so myself. I have filmed so many of my own machinima in this village, it's not even funny. I think almost every episode has some sort of... Let's see, in Inventing Swearwords 4, they were in this village. In Inventing Swearwords 5, I think there was one scene, at least in this village. I don't even recall. Bloodhoof. Bloodhoof, yes. There we go. Let's see, where... Remember in Inventing Swearwords, No, it was my Christmas special. When Oxhorn got kidnapped, this was the part at the very end of the movie where they were having the big Christmas party here in Bloodhoof Village. And then the two elves walked up this road to make peace. This is where it was. I remember shooting it here because I really liked the animation of this. Right there. Okay, WoW Insider is tweeting, and Mists of Pandaria is live. Enjoy your adventures. Okay, according to WoW Insider, Mists of Pandaria is live a whole 4 minutes early. But I'm still online. I'm in the beta and I'm online. Maybe I'm wrong in thinking that this entire server will crash. Maybe Blizzard will just keep it up perpetually. As soon as the timer dings, I am going to wait about 5 minutes or so. And if it doesn't crash, I'll be off. Novadonna says, honey, are you logging off soon? Yes, I will be logging off in about 5 minutes. Randarin says, Battle.net Tinker says, 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes to go, ladies and gentlemen. 2 minutes to go. Let's watch the moon in Mulgore as the world falls apart around us. That's a nice shot, huh? Alright, baby, I will be in a very short period of time. Be there in just a mo. Alright, ladies and gents, let's see if this happens. Screenshot, alright. Print screen. The last moment seen before Mists of Pandaria. And the clouds are parting just in time for everything to go black. 11:59 by my clock. I don't know what you guys see, but by mine it says 11:59. And it's 12 o'clock. It is midnight. It is now September 25th on the West Coast. Pacific time. And yet here we are. The world has not devolved into pieces. Nothing has gone awry. The moon still hangs in the sky. It has not fallen. The stars still twinkling. The windmill's still turning. What is going on here? Are we going to have two worlds? One World of Warcraft and one World of Warcraft beta? I don't understand. I just don't understand. What is going on? Maybe we have to wait until 12:01. Alright, let's wait until 12:01. You're in a queue. 1,439 people before you in a queue, huh? Alright, well, ladies and gentlemen, it is 12:01 by my clock, and the world has not come to an end. I doubt it will come to an end very shortly, and I'm not going to wait for it. So, well, sadly, I cannot show you a collapsing world. That's what I really wanted to do. But thank you very much for hanging out with me tonight. The mists of Pandaria have been unleashed upon the world. Tonight, pandas will stalk us in our sleep. Ding, the baby needs you, sir. Indeed, he does. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It is time for me to log off. I hope you enjoyed excerpts from The Tale of Cloran Hastings. Stay tuned. It will be hitting the e-stores and bookstores near you shortly. I am out for the night. Stay classy, ladies and gentlemen. Stay classy.